Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's all right.
Detector type set to AM.
You want to be prepared for 1 week, 1 month, or 1 year. Our survival food kits have every element you need to sustain your own.
Volume level set to 42 decibels.
Shortwave listeners, if you visit heavensharvest.com or call right now and use the promo.
So, playing around with the Airspy. That's what's going to be here today. The Airspy HF Plus Discovery with SDR Sharp software. Thought it'd be a little change to have that instead of the SDR Play. Just gonna just like this. Here we go. So we have more radio and less other stuff. Hope that you'll enjoy today's show. And we're ready to roll. So we got some questions today from a couple of viewers on via email. So I kept the questions for the live show, and also want to say hello to Elizabeth that says hello from the email today. She has not been around for a few shows. She said that she had some health problems and had a hospital visit, and now she's back at home. She says that nothing is better than being at home, trying to get better, and watching your show and listening to the radio. Thank you for all you do. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I hope you are feeling better. She is in Regina, Saskatchewan. And okay, let's start this show. My drink today is cranberry and vodka. Cheers, everybody. And I got this orange stuff on my shoulder. Okay, hey everybody, welcome aboard. The angle's a little different. I'm trying to position the camera in a way that it's easy for me to go here, do something on the radio, come back here, or show you something here. So it's kind of cool. And we are going to, of course, start the show. My name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. We are live twice a week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's 0 hours UTC. That means it's Thursday for a lot of people. And Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, that's 20 hours Universal Time. And we are here to talk about radio and just have fun. Okay, let's just put it down to the basics of what this is. Let's have fun. There's no competition here. It's no, anybody's better than anybody else or whatever. We are a bunch of guys. We all have different knowledge of different areas of the hobby, but together as a group, we are a bunch of fantastic people that likes to help each other, understanding why things work, don't work, how they work, how to make it work, and just have fun with radio. And it's cool because I was watching the Facebook group today, and sometimes I watch the posts, and I find it fun because I see that people truly are having fun tuning their little radios and tuning around. And, you look at the diversity of radios out there. I mean, from the small portable to those that have the expensive gears, the big icons and so on. But everybody's on the same level. Everybody's having fun. And that's what is important here, I think. There's a beautiful chat room with wonderful people if you want to join in. It's all you need is a Gmail account, and you can log in and say hi, ask questions. People are the chat room is super friendly and super cool and answering questions and helping out. You also have the Facebook group that, I know a lot of people don't like Facebook. I personally go over the old Facebook thing and just I don't care. It's a way for me to stay in touch. It's you're in there, you're not there, you want to be there or you don't want to be there. That's the way it is. But if you're on Facebook, why not check out the Facebook group, official SWL channel, because that's where people post really a lot of fun. And it's really nice to see the posts and see everybody. 1,400 and some members right now. Growing fast, soon growing to 1,500 members. Pretty cool group, which was started officially. I promoted the group for the first time sometime in January of last year. So we've gone 1,400 and some members in a year, which is pretty good. So official SWL channel, same name as the channel here on YouTube. And hope you're going to enjoy the show today. Bobby Burgess, WA5107 SWL. Nice to have you here from Morgan City, Louisiana. This is the Airspy HF Plus discovery on the screen over here. And actually downloaded the SDR Sharp, but not just the software. There's a second download on the page where you have a different version, which is the same core updated version, but with it's somebody has tweaked it and has added tons of plugins on it and changed a little bit the interface, the way it looks. I'm trying this one on this computer. The other one, the main computer I'm using for streaming right now, that one has the standard version with no plugins, nothing. So we'll be looking at that. And of course, I'm continuing to test out the Airspy. No official decision yet of anything because I am in the process of setting up a computer with the same software and same antennas, so that when I compare between both the RSPDX and the HF Plus Discovery, to really see the performance on the same exact setup, because you can't really do that with different software. Each software is different. Each software has different sound, audio processing. Each software has different ways of setting up the gain and the way that things are, and all of that together means that if you have two different software, you have two different sounds, if you want, and two different results, because there's too many settings. So if you have the same software, you can actually make sure that the same settings apply to both device, and hopefully have an idea. But it's been a little more than a week now that I've been playing around with this and having fun. Matt, nice to have you here. MDK2 from Denver, Colorado. And outside temperature is 11 Celsius. Wow. Here it is right now, minus 10 Celsius. And tonight we're going down to minus 20. So that's going to be like minus 3, 4, 5 Fahrenheit. It's really, really cold. And actually the stray cat has been coming over and sleeping. It's funny because she spends, even though it's cold, she wants to spend the rest of the day outside. But she probably has this cozy place she goes to. But around 9, 10 p.m., you see you see her arrive here. She eats and then she goes in the living room and sleeps on the couch. And she spends the night and then she asks to go back out in the morning. So if she enjoys having a few hours in the warmth of the home, it's pretty cool. Just noticed that the laptop is at the complete end of the table. And it's like, yeah, why am I going to bend over to just go and do something on the laptop? I can bring it closer to me. So what else do we have? Rob, nice to have you here from Phoenix, Arizona. Koroama Nikolai, nice to have you here. James Johnson, nice to have you on board. We have I love a good snowstorm. Also, I'm a sucker for snowstorms, but of course I don't have a car, so that probably helps in me having fun and liking uh, snowstorms. Tom DXer, WPE2QED. Nice to have you here from the Hudson Valley, New York. 45 unit. Nice to have you on board. 70 degrees in Florida. Perfect weather to go outside with a radio. Might have to wait and see what the Texan PL365 compared to PL330 results are. I'm sure Gilles will be doing through a review soon. So, yeah, well, I pretty much have a good idea of the PL330. It's an amazing little radio for the price. And I should compare it with the PL365. And talking of the PL365, I ordered the PL368. Now, it is not the official export version yet, but it seems to not have, or at least we don't see any particular bugs with it right now. So that made me push the buy now on eBay. I purchased it from a Hong Kong seller at 91, exactly, it was 91 US dollars, shipping included. So I'm going to wait for that to arrive, and hopefully it's going to arrive fast. And it's something that it's going to be cool. It's basically a PL365 or a Connicom GP5 for those that have the Connicom version, with a keypad and more precision in the tuning. So it looks really, really nice. Somehow when I look at it tunes and how it works, I have the impression it shares a lot of the basics of the PL330 and the different form factor. Kind of an interesting one to look at. Jay Watterson 69, nice to have you here, my friend. Bonjour PLF Radio, bienvenue de la France. C'est toujours un plaisir de vous avoir parmi nous. So far, I like the Airspy. I mean, the basic tests that I've done with it right now is that I can say that it is sensitive and good on shortwave. It gets everything that my RSPDX gets. It's a nice. It does well what it has to do. The only part I'm having problems is I'm having kind of AM station spurious signals appear on the, I'd say below about 3 megahertz, and it gets worse as I go down, making it difficult to use below about 2. If I say, below 2 megahertz, it starts getting tough to use. So I'm going to check my setup and check the stuff here. I've read a few little posts and things with that, so we're gonna check out what's happening. I don't have that problem with the RSPDX, so we'll be checking out what's happening with that. But the shortwave performance on the upper, above 3 megahertz works great. It does what it needs to do. VHF seems to be quite sensitive also. The only thing that would make me go back to an RSPD, the RSPDX, when I go to shortwave, is the spectrum. We talk about spectrum, and some people say, "Well, I don't understand why you would want a bigger spectrum than what the Airspy gives you on the display." And it has to do with screen size, actually. If you're looking at it on a laptop with a 15-inch screen, I totally agree that you don't really need more than that. But when I use a 50-inch TV here, that is fun for much more spectrum to be viewed because you have a bigger screen to view it. So when you have a big screen, you want to have more of that waterfall, because I use a lot of the waterfall, and I use often at least 2 or 3 megahertz wide, because so many times I see signals that I would have missed if I didn't know that it was there. So that's the thing that I'm actually finding maybe a negative side for me. It's probably not for everybody, but for me it is a negative thing that waterfall, the bandwidth or the size of the waterfall is restrained to at the best 912 kilohertz wide. And I mean, it's still 900 kilohertz, but I like bigger than that. The other thing that would bring me back to the RSPDX personally is that I do a lot of UHF satellite monitoring and even UHF scanning and monitoring. The Airspy HF Plus doesn't have much of a range. It goes from 60 to 260 megahertz. So it's limited in the VHF range. And because I like to go outside of that range a lot, once again, the RSPDX for me is a better choice. But anybody that would get an Airspy HF Plus Discovery, I think he's getting a great, he's getting a good device. The shortwave reception is great. The advantage of the Discovery also would be, since it can use SDR Sharp, one of the advantages of using SDR Sharp is the plugins, because SDR Sharp has quite an extensive catalog of plugins for all sorts of features. And the SDR Play devices don't work on SDR Sharp, so they can't use the plugins. They can't do that. Another thing that might be of interest also, the Airspy has a firmware that is upgradable. So you can, they could fix bugs, they could do things with that are interesting. And that is an interesting side to the Airspy also. Being able to have new firmware in it can truly make this device, change the device. And as it, the months and the weeks and the months go by, they can introduce new firmware that has or adds or changes some of the capabilities to make it better, or so these are interesting parts of what the Airspy is. The RSPDX does not have upgradable firmware. You get what you have with the device. And last but not least for now is what I like about the RSPDX is that I find 3 antenna inputs very useful, because I have multiple antennas. If you have just one antenna, you don't really care. The just one antenna input is enough. But if you want to use multiple antennas on the Airspy, you need an outboard antenna switch to use it. But I think there's advantages to each. My tests will be the tests of a regular noisy environment guy. So one of the things you got to understand here is that I'm not testing the SDR, the Airspy or the RSPDX to a level of with a beverage in the middle of the woods where there's no noise, where you could probably see some of the subtle differences between both. My tests will resume, or will be on the fact of just using them in a noisy environment. And what I see is those that love the Airspy are often on a quiet environment, and they find a difference there. But I think in a noisy environment, it's really hard to see any difference between both devices, the RSPDX and the Airspy. I think that choice there will be more in what you want exactly. Do you want a good wideband coverage up to the UHF range and a big waterfall that has up to 10 megahertz of spectrum available? Or do you just want a shortwave, and because of the size of the screen, it doesn't matter how big the waterfall could be? I think these are questions you got to ask yourself to make a difference. Also, will you use plugins or not? Will you want to have something that you can do more with because of the plugins that SDR Sharp, for example, has? So these are things to think about. Hi, Brawler. Nice to have you here from Arkansas. Arjun Wiesman, nice to have you here from Cyprus. Keegan, nice to have you here. XN80Xer in our Northwest Arkansas, 53 Fahrenheit. Jeff, K85QDO, nice to have you on board. Everybody's saying hello to Elizabeth. And what else do we have? Let's go down here. So it's very so like the the basic information I have right now is really basic because of the limited use that I did with two different PCs, two different software, which is not representative of exactly how it could be. But I plan on having that fixed in the next few days and having them work on the same software. What else do we have? What else do we have? Mark Bowes, nice to have you here, Mark. Tony Westbrook, nice to have you on board, Tony from the UK. And yeah, there's Mixed Radio International on 1200, but I have not been able to receive it here. I'm going to try it just now. I'm going to try it again, see if I can hear anything. So 12100 and USB. Do I get anything? Doesn't seem to be making it here, or maybe it's a high frequency. If it's too close, maybe it's propagating over me. You guys on the West Coast seem to hear it. Here in Montreal, I'm not hearing it. Command C 1976. So, yep, that is SDR Sharp that you see on the screen. And it is running a different radio also, which is the Airspy HF Plus Discovery at the moment. And it is using the MLA30 loop for shortwave reception. Mr. J Spring, nice to have you here. Joe Laturco, nice to have you here, Joe, from Rochester, New York. Jeff Williams from Cornwall, UK. Jerry DX, nice to have you on board, my friend. So Matt says, folks, going to propose that we all chip in to help purchase a multi-coupler, which will help him to test the Discovery and the RSPDX. Cost is exceeding 200 US. So if you guys want to chip in a few dollars to help out in getting this multi-coupler, cool. That would be nice. And thanks, Matt, for the initiative. And I can actually put the PayPal here. So here's the PayPal email that you can use if you want to chip in. So yeah, that would be nice because what's nice with a multi-coupler is that you can use the same antenna on multiple radios, and that's pretty cool. Mark, nice to have you here from Birmingham, England. We have Mark Cancellara. Nice to have you here. What else do we have? Neil Toombs, nice to have you here. M0CJM in the UK. Trying to reinstall a friend's old laptop, Windows Vista, and yes, it's as horrible as I remember. Oh man, Windows Vista. Imagine as a tech guy, I had to go through, with Windows Vista, I had to go through two things. Windows Vista that people had, but also the fact that for some reason, at that period of time, there were tons of laptops that were sold. The cheap laptops were sold with not enough RAM memory. So people would go crazy because already at the first version of Vista was kind of sluggish. And add to that a lot of the clients were going crazy because they had 2 gigabytes of RAM. And I remember seeing some PCs with 1 gigabyte of RAM. And they were all saying, well, why is it so slow? And it's like, well, you need more RAM memory. And you know how people are. People are like, well, I already spent $300 on that little computer. And you're asking me to spend, $75 for more memory. Yeah, I know. But, what I would do is I had RAM tests in bags. So what I would do is I would say, look, I'm going to increase the RAM of your computer with what I have and see for yourself the difference. And I would put, I would take that 1 gigabyte of RAM they have, and I would actually put 4 gigabytes from what I had in my bag. And then I would turn on the PC and they would see, like, they would look at it, play around and say, wow, this is so fast. And I was like, yep, you need more RAM. And it was the only way that you can convince them, because of, people don't understand, and they would buy the crappy laptops that you should avoid, which has, not enough memory on it. Man. Eric Cottrell, bonjour, hi. Nice to have you here from Massachusetts. -7 Celsius over there. Glenn, USA, nice to have you here. Waiting for a big snowstorm to hit Milwaukee tonight. So my fitness happy daughter and strong grandson live with us. Guess what they'll be doing tomorrow? That sounded, when you start saying, well, you're a strong grandson, something's coming at the end of that. Mad Radio DXer, nice to have you on board from the UK. Wizard of Oz, nice to have you here from Wisconsin. KC9TVN, nice to have you here, Hazi. Nick Amendel from Romania, nice to have you on board. We have Mr. J Spring recently bought the HF Plus, first SDR radio using a U-loop antenna indoors. SDR is a different world. Oh, it's a different world. That is one thing that is very important to understand for most people, is dabbling in software-defined receivers is really another world. It's a different thing. It's a different beast. And there is a need to take the time to understand that, because I don't think it's for everyone. We sometimes talk about what radios, because I often get, SDR is going to take over the world. They're so much better than portable radios. And it's like, yeah, it depends on what you do and depends who you are. Not everybody wants an SDR, that's for sure. A lot of people still want to have those good old desktops with knobs and, all the bells and whistles. Some like their nice little portables, and that's what they want. A lot of people don't like using a computer to run a radio also. These are all things you got to think about. But I think when you like SDRs, you go to your software-defined radio and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to use the other radios anymore. Especially the big gun radios. I mean, I have a Lonely ICOM ICR 8500. I've set up the Yaesu FT450 here. I want to find a spot also somewhere over there where I'm going to put the ICOM. I want them to be, up and ready to work when I need them. I think that firing up these old radios or these desktop receivers and transceivers is nice, Sal Marandola, nice to have you on board. Miguel Angel Reyes Gordillo, nice to have you on board from Mexico. Nice to have you here. I don't know if I said it at the beginning. My name is Gilles, and I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Kurama Nikolai received his shortwave call sign. Cool. YO8006SWL. Nice to have you on the shortwave call sign now. Pretty cool. You're waiting for the results of the ham radio exam? I'm sure you did well, my friend. Salut Vince, bienvenue. J'espère que ça va bien. Nice to have you on board. Joseph Fitzgerald from Massachusetts. Nice to have you here. The Vaults, nice to have you on board from Latvia. Catalin, nice to have you on board from Germany. Airspy loop antenna and RSP1A are situated on the 6th floor window. Checking the bands here in Munich. Cool. Have fun. Robert Cross, nice to have you on board. KW1161, nice to have you on board from Tucson, Arizona. Hernandez, salut, nice to have you here from Montreal. What else do we have? Yeah, I see somebody posted that link, the medium wave band blocking filter. But it's still, something that I'm a little surprised that it happens. I know Montreal has several multi 50 kilowatt AM stations, but I don't know. Well, we'll see. Well, I'm going to continue playing around with that for sure. Ental, nice to have you here, my friend. Cool to have you on board. What else do we have? WF7I Homebrew, nice to have you on board, Keegan, and pretty cool to have you here from Virginia. And they're expecting snow, so it's kind of interesting because here it's supposed to be pretty much sunny all the week almost. It's like we don't see really snow or anything, but it is going to be cold. We're in a kind of a dome of cold air now, so it's really, really cold. Halbert, nice to have you on board from Calgary. Cool to have you here. Joe Tyson, nice to have you on board from North Carolina, KM4WRQ. KW1161, my Airspy HF Plus has a better dynamic range than my Airspy 1A. It sounds like nothing has changed between the upgrades, but are good for DXing shortwave. So cool. Eric Kacha, the lack of support for SDR Play and SDR Sharp is on purpose. Airspy considers the SDR Play as a competitor, while others like RTL SDR are not. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, companies often try to favor their own stuff, which is sad. I understand the reason they want to do this, but I often find that it's something that should not happen, because if you believe in your products, you shouldn't be afraid that a competition is using your software, the same software. I don't like that, because it kind of tells you, well, what you're afraid of. You're afraid that they have a better one than yours. It's something I hate, and I think companies that act like that are companies that are not. I don't know. It's not a good thing. We should have the choice we want, and for the rest, who cares? Honestly, if your product is good, if you believe in the product you are selling, why are you afraid of having that same software used by the competition? It's almost as if I would, block everybody that has a YouTube channel that talks about radio, because of a simple fact that you could be a competition. It's like, no. We each do things in a different way. It's up to you to decide, do you like that channel better than this channel? That's life. I mean, we all have preferences. Some people can't stand seeing my face. Some people love what I do. It's life. And it's always been like that for everybody, I think. We all have people that don't like us. It's part of life. And there's people that love us. That's why we have friends, and that's why some people never become friends. It's simple as that. And I think that if you believe in your products, I don't see why you are preventing somebody from using the software. It's something I have a hard time, and I feel that companies that do that are companies that aren't totally fair play and fair game. Because I'm pretty sure some of the Airspy users that always use Airspy also, some of that has to do with the plugins that they need for the radio. And they will use the Airspy because it runs with their software that has all of these plugins. Thomas Lane, nice to have you here from Grand Rapids, Michigan. What else do we have? We have Manolis. Nice to have you here. M0IUR from the UK. Cap Desire, nice to have you. Cap Destiny, sorry. Nice to have you on board from Barcelona, Spain. Harry Anderson, nice to have you on board from Tugboat in Long Island. So that's cool. Bobby Burgess says, I was told that the new RTL SDR dongles will use a different kind of tuning chip. It's possible. I mean, there must be other things out there that can be used to do that type of work. That's going to be interesting to see. Addy G6AD, nice to have you on board from the UK. Joe Tyson, nice to have you here. I think I said already, but I don't know, remember. G Lee, nice to have you here from Fresno, California. WA6120 SWL. Pretty cool to have you here. Matt says 12100 USB first reported in on the HF underground. So yeah, interesting to wonder where it might be transmitting from. Yeah, it's interesting. I usually hear it really well. When they're on, I usually hear mixed radio real strong. But today it's not there. So kind of interesting. Ken Surtees says, "What plugins on Airspy?" So there's tons of plugins for all sorts of different things. Like this one here, the version I downloaded, which is the second one on the list when you go to the website for downloading SDR Sharp, has audio compression plugins, has all sorts of things that are interesting in it. It adds a lot of plugins, so I need to start playing around with that. So no, I haven't really KW1161. I haven't started playing with plugins much yet, but I'm going to start for sure playing around with that. And there's a learning curve for me because since SDR Sharp is not a software I use very often, there's a lot of that. Newbie using a software that he is not used to, that is happening. So that is also something that I am going to have to get used to because I'm not comfortable using SDR Sharp yet. Paranoid Nolan, nice to have you here from Ireland. Retro Man, nice to have you here. Vancouver Island DXer, nice to have you on board. Brian, VE7AUL, been away from these videos for a while. It's nice to be back. Nice to have you back. KX2U, nice to have you here. So what do you know about pen adapters and the 99199A radio? I'm sure there are people out there that know a lot more than me on the pen adapters and the 991 and 991A that could help you out for sure here. Steve Miller, nice to have you here from snowy Arizona. Cool. Lee Burkett, nice to have you on board. Been monitoring radar frequencies below 12 megahertz this week and activity on 20 meters, 14350 on several new receivers, and looking through HF underground for pirate frequencies. Cool. That keeps a man busy. Keeps a man busy. RFA Radio Free America, nice to have you here from Virginia Beach in the USA. Pretty cool. Thomas Lane, can you recommend a good online tutorial to better understand SDR? I'd like to understand them better. Yeah. Well, I'll be looking at what's available because there's a lot of stuff out there. There are things that I will probably be doing myself, but I'll be going through different. There's a lot of YouTube channels that have videos also to help out in the world of SDRs and understanding SDRs. I think for somebody that doesn't know at all anything about what SDRs are all about, there's definitely a huge learning curve. There's definitely a huge knowledge that you have to acquire to be to be comfortable in using an SDR. Not everybody is, And plus the fact that part of that is also a problem of if you're not very computer savvy, that also adds to the complexity. So I'll be checking into that for sure. René Charbonnier, the Dutch pirate. Nice to have you here from the Netherlands. Cap Destiny needs good SDR tutorial setup for Linux. PLF radio. What is the radio at the right of your XH Data D808? No, this is the Sangean HDR14 HD radio. It's my little HD radio for North America that I purchased a couple of months ago to dabble in HD radio in North America. So the Sangean HDR14. Nick, nice to have you here. K9XN from Indiana, Northwest Indiana. Jetcrafter, nice to have you here from Maine. Sunny but cold, pretty much the same here. Although it wasn't that sunny today. There was kind of more cloudiness than sun. The sun is like now just barely getting out, but of course it's going to set in an hour's time, but kind of cold. Dave Belil, nice to have you here. WA1UJA from New Hampshire, using the ICOM IC7300 for general coverage. Great radio. I mean, I think that is an amazing transceiver, and it's good. You know, transceivers are great receivers, so it's pretty cool. Spin Selling Espanol, nice to have you on board. CE3DOF now in Mexico City. Cool. Stephen Wood, nice to have you here from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Nothing on 1200 here, but BBC booming on 12095. Pamela Militia Catty, nice to have you here. KJ Walden, nice to have you on board from the Netherlands. Pamela is in Tampa, Florida. Matt MDK2 says, where I am, my worst nemesis is a 10 kilowatt transmitter because it's only 3 miles away. The 50 kilowatt for KOA 850 is at least 15 miles away. So, yeah, we got a few here that are powerful. I'm going to have to check that out. Pamela got a Texan PL 380. Yeah, great little radio. Have fun. Have fun. Vault says strong local transmitters are an issue. RSP has medium wave FM notch, but no filter is perfect. If they are used, they reduce sensitivity on nearby frequencies. Yeah, I know. But at least, you know, on the RSP, what's nice is that filter definitely is a great help in making it quite immune to the overload that I could get. And I really enjoy that. But of course, it does indeed have an impact sometimes on the frequencies that are close. So I'll be checking that out. It's for sure, because I mean, if I get too much of the spurs from the local transmitters, definitely makes less of an interesting device, you know. And I'll add, you know, I will play a lot with it to make sure that, you know, it's not something that I did or anything, because if that would be, it adds a plus to the RSP devices because they don't have that problem. So somebody that could live close to some AM radio transmitters, that could be a problem. But I'll continue checking out. Some say they live close to some of the transmitters and have no problem. So we're going to see. There's multiple 50 kilowatts that are in a radius of, you know, maybe 10, 15, 20 miles or kilometers. So and 50 kilowatts is a lot of power, you know. So that's something that is maybe playing against me a little bit. Pet F. Barrett, nice to have you on board, and had great reception here in Mansfield, UK on 20 meters today. Take care. Love the live stream. There was quite a few, so he has the XH Data D808. There was quite a few European hams on the 17 meter today. around 15 to 16 UT today. I was hearing a few UK stations. There was a guy in Germany, another one I think was in Poland, all in the 18 in single sideband on the 18068 to 18168 17 meter range. So it seems that there was transatlantic possibilities on 17 meters. 15 meters was quiet, but we don't have any sunspots right now. Larry Stevens, nice to have you here. Expecting cold with 5 to 8 inches of snow in central Ohio. So, what else do we have? Pamela says, you're the best shortwave channel in my opinion. Thank you very much. We try to do our best. We try to do our best. Okay, let's try to go down here. What else do we have? Michael Shigda says the Canadian Amateur Radio Basic Qualification Study Guide says that the atmospherics and man-made noise are not usually problems on 17 and 15. Does this mean noise at home won't impact reception? No. One of the things you will notice, and it's pretty general everywhere, except, there's exceptions to every rule, but almost everywhere where it's noisy, what you notice is the higher you go in the bands, the less that noise is a problem. So an example, I have less noise at, 15 meter band than I do at 80 meter band. For some reason, there's maybe a lot of the devices, the way they're designed, I don't know, but it's not always true. But man-made noise affects everywhere. I don't know if it's exactly the way they say it, but if they say man-made noise is not usually a problem on 17 and 15, it's not true. Man-made noise affects every band, and up to the 10 meter band, and even could affect the VHF, like 6 meter, 2 meters. So it's not, I don't know if that's the way they're actually wording it, but it's not totally true, actually. Dennis Bergitzi. Don't make me choose between my face and Paul's. Well, yeah, that's no contest. Everybody wants to see Paul. Hey, I'd rather see Paul than see myself in the mirror, so, Daryl, nice to have you here from Northern Ontario. Very cold, minus 22. That is a great way a great moment to listen to the radio, stay home in the warmth, and watch a YouTube stream. Jim, nice to have you here from Rhode Island. EA3IEK, Raptor 22 Stealth. David from Barcelona, nice to have you on board. In Spain, nice to see you again using an SDR I have. Love the Airspy HF Plus Discovery. I also have a dual port, which took some DC and needs fixing. Cool. Tarek, nice to have you here from Cairo, Egypt. Nice to have you here, Tarek. Pretty cool. A plugin, Mr. JSpring, is simply a little piece of code or software that you add. So it's, plugin is a general term. It's not just SDR. There are games for gamers that have add-ons or plugins that add features. It's simply a small program that adds a feature to a SDR that doesn't exist in it. For example, Eric Cottrell in the chat room made a plugin for SDR Uno that enables you to download and get the EIBI space schedules and have the information of what stations are on the air displayed on the screen. There are plugins for all sorts of reasons. For example, if you find that the audio processing or the audio is bad in an SDR software with your devices, you could add a plugin or a program, a small program that is added to the software that does some audio processing, for example, and that could, for example, add an equalizer to help filter out the frequencies that are bad. So it simply adds a capability to the SDR, the software, that doesn't exist at the start, or it exists, but it actually improves upon it. Catalin, by the way, do you think about a video explaining the Black Cat plugins on SDR Uno? Actually, I am soon to post a series of videos on the different plugins for SDR Uno and RSP devices, including Erica Troll's plugin and all of that. So I will be looking at all of that. And of course, there will surely be some videos about plugins for SDR Sharp as time goes by. Once again, it's all a question of having enough time to do all of this. I need, 50-hour days. But I'll be looking at that. Christopher Hansen, nice to have you on board from Montreal. Nice to have you here. Bill from Seattle, nice to have you on board. Artist Autocrat's Kitchen, nice to have you here from Massachusetts. Very cold. Hoping for some good DX tonight. Yeah, nothing like DXing in our warm home. And it's cold. Anyways, here after 8 p.m. I have to stay inside. We have a curfew. So it's like, it's radio time. Valmir, nice to have you here. M7AC in London. Pretty cool. Ray, nice to have you on board. Let me check it out here. Dmitry Lavrinovich, nice to have you on board from Minnesota. Jasper, nice to have you here from New York. Esteban, nice to have you on board from the Canary Islands. Why was 5 dashes called 5 dashes? I don't know. Yeah, SDR Play does have quite a few videos for training on SDRs and their SDR Play devices and SDR Uno also. Anybody that uses that, they have quite a few videos that are helpful. But I noticed, a lot of people come to me for videos because one thing that comes out of a lot of the videos that are online that people will ask me, say, can you do a video on a specific subject or a specific aspect of the SDR? Because you explain it so simply. And I go and watch the videos of these places, or like, one of the comments I had of SDR Play was that people that are new to SDRs are not necessarily getting that much out of these videos, because one of the biggest problems when you know your stuff is that you might overlook the fact that your language or the way you're explaining it is still not simple enough. And, we have to understand that there are some newbies out there that have no idea what all this works. And they do need that guiding hand that will actually help them learn how it works. And a lot of people enjoyed a lot of my videos that I post here for that simple reason. They come here and they say, you know what? I've had hams. I don't know how many hams that actually watched one of my videos that explains what single sideband is all about and upper lower sideband, and say, you know what? This is the best explanation I've ever seen on single sideband. I finally actually understand what it is. And there are a few things like that. I've had hams that passed their license and say, you know what? There are tons of things I didn't understand clearly, but I found your videos talking about the different amateur bands and the way that, they are all, separated, and what frequency range has digital modes and so on. and the propagation and everything. And it's like, you actually made me understand things that I couldn't understand while I was studying. So it's kind of nice to know that I'm able, to a certain extent. It doesn't always work, because making a video to explain something is a task in itself, because you sit down and you're like, yeah, I'm going to have to explain this. It's like the video this week that I posted about a signal to noise ratio. The next day I rewatched the video and I'm like, no, this ain't good. I think the way, the wording, the way that it's explained, it's like, I think I'm giving the wrong idea here. It's not explained properly. I need to re-explain it in another way, because I need to have that, cleared out. But then again, I don't look at the signal to noise ratio on these portable receivers. I don't think it's accurate, and I don't think it's that useful. If you notice, a lot of my videos that I posted with portable receivers, instead of the signal to noise ratio on the top right, I have a clock displayed, for a very simple reason. I rather have what UTC time we are than that information that isn't that useful for me. An S meter was kind of cool. There's a visual aspect to that that's kind of nice, giving an idea of a signal level. But honestly, you just, most portables, even, when they're not signal to noise ratio, even when they are bar graphs, LCD bar graphs, and examples of that are like the Texan PL600. And you look at that and you're like, the signal is halfway good and it displays 5 bars out of 5. And you're like, that's not 5 bars out of 5. That should be 3 bars out of 5. So it's overreading it. And so you end up like, okay, these are useless. And the real good ones are the ones that are, from more expensive devices, or that have been tested to be accurate with measurements. Because on the small portables, like the Texan receivers, I don't find a use for the signal to noise ratio that's really important. It is, and like I always say, and I say it in my videos, like, you take 10 different radios that have signal to noise ratio, put them on the same exact setup, and you got 10 different results on the screen. And you're like, yeah, okay. Shows you that's not very accurate, actually. So, the best signal to noise ratio that you have is listening. You have the best signal to noise ratio there. And actually, I think it was on the Facebook group, somebody posted, when I would do reception reports, he said that he was using his ears, just listening to the signal, to give out the SIMPO code for the reception reports, which is mostly what I did also. I mean, you might have an S meter that shows you the strength of a signal. It can help out, but just listen. Is it listenable? You got better signal to noise ratio. But don't go too crazy on that, and just keep it to the basics. M. Duffy, nice to have you here. Just got an XH Data D808. That is excellent. You're going to have fun with that. Bill, will you ever get to Seattle? I'd like to one day. Who knows? I'd like to one day. I'd like to go to a lot of places in the U.S. I've never been. My main U.S. knowledge is up and down the East Coast. M. Duffy is new to the radio stuff, so you're gonna take the time to learn, take the time to understand your radio, and check it out. And don't expect. I think one of the biggest problems, maybe for a lot of newbies, is expecting too much quickly. It's a hobby like a lot of hobbies that requires time and knowledge, and you have to take the time to understand what you're doing and what you can receive. And depending where you live, it's different game. We don't all receive the same signals with the same strengths, and usually when you're on the West Coast, Europe is a more difficult task, but you will get Asian stations easier than I do, for example. So it's all sorts of things like that you got to get used to. Know where and when to listen to the different frequency range also is important. Mark says, I get letters on my waterfall from time to time. Someone broadcasting sounds that draw letters on the SDR waterfall. Oh, yeah. Because you can draw patterns with audio. What they do is that the waterfall that you see has the audio pattern in it. And by actually sending out the proper audio frequencies in sequence, you can draw patterns, you can write letters, you can make all sorts of small, appear all sorts of things on that waterfall. There's quite a few of them that actually use that little trick to do that. One of them is the radiogram, the shortwave radiogram, which often uses that pattern to say radiogram, shortwave radiogram. Ken Surtees, nice to have you here. So the SDR Play website has many tutorial videos that you can go to. Abe Lincoln, nice to have you on board. Pretty cool to have everybody here. Falstrot, nice to see the Yisu and the CB in the back. You have done so much listening. Now you need to transmit. Yes, I know. VA2 GCF. I know. Matt says SDR Play excels at helping newbies learn the ropes. Airspy could learn a thing or two from them. Cool. Norm Akers, nice to have you here from Ohio. Catalin, I have been connected to a hotel Wi-Fi, and since then the Windows account doesn't want to log me in. Hotel Wi-Fi's are dangerous. You got to be careful what you do. And you better, anything that's an hotel Wi-Fi, anything that's a public Wi-Fi, you better not even try to log in into any types of accounts. Aim Lincoln says, I feel for anyone who lives by a powerful transmitter. I am less than a mile from a 50 kilowatt AM tower. Oh, that's a killer thing. That's a killer thing. Thomas Lane loves his XH Data D808, better radio than I ever could imagine. Oh, it's an amazing device. It's truly an amazing little radio. Yee, buddy, nice to have you here. Do I receive UVB 76? Yeah, I do from time to time. It's a little too early to try it, maybe, but let's just try it anyways. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna 4625 enter and upper sideband. Yes. Anything that looks like a buzzer here? Nothing that sounds like a buzzer. Let's check out if I get 50. Shannon Volmet is a great indicator of things I could listen to. Yeah, it's starting to get in. And I see here.
New York, Break Airspy 097 New York.
5550 with New York air traffic. New York air traffic control 5550 upper sideband.
Airspy 097 New York, ATC is requesting you please select ATC comms off, log on Kilo Zulu Whiskey Yankee, over.
Nice to see some air traffic control coming in on the HF bands with all the planes that are still on the ground. Tarek got a Texan PL600 and 660, but mainly using RF Space SRDR IQ. Cool. Sheldon Harvey, nice to have you on board from Greenfield Park, Quebec. What else do we have? Let me try to... What else do we have too? Try to go down. Pamela, does the PL380 have USB or LSB? Nope. It is yes. Nope. Unfortunately, the PL380 is not capable of upper or lower sideband. But, you still can hear a lot of stuff with it. Matt says, my location is near the exact center of a trio of medium wave broadcast towers. One is low power and by itself, but the other two sites have multiple transmitters. One is 5 kilowatt and the other is 10. Wow. Trim Valley, Mr. Bale, nice to have you on board. Matt says, I think it's source of issues I have anytime I use an amplified antenna. Yeah, that is a big problem. Absolutely. Tarek says, yesterday in Cairo, managed to get some CB radios. Oh, cool. 27 megahertz. Yeah, cool. Lots of stuff happening on the CB band in Cairo. Randy, nice to have you here from Riverside, California. No problem, Michael. Happy to be here and talk about and help out. Thomas Lane, if Paul the cat would talk, what tales he'd tell. Oh, man. I'm sure he has his share. Dan V, nice to have you on board from Ohio. Winter field day. Busy on 40 meters. Oh, cool. Tarek says, man-made noise killed medium wave in Cairo. Yeah, it's a tough one. Noise is a tough one. Hello there, Fastload in Montreal. Nice to have you on board, my friend. What else do we have? Kevin, nice to have you on board, WS2H. Chas Tank, nice to have you on board from Louisville, Kentucky, USA. What else do we have? Fast load, good pass on Montreal for ISS. I know that they had some slow scan TV yesterday or the day before, but I think it was targeting only the European side or near Moscow. They would switch it off at times that it was passing over Montreal. What else do we have? I don't remember the name of the plugin. If Eric is still there, can you just remind everybody what the name is for the plugin? What else do we have? Device Modder, nice to have you here from Toronto. Anesla, nice to have you here from Lyon, France. Bienvenue. Traveler Mr. Bell watching on the iPad, currently replacing the insides of a toilet tank. That's a way to have some entertainment while playing with the toilet. Overland Vegan, salut et bienvenue de la Rive-Sud. Nice to have you on board from the South Shore of Montreal. Mr. J Spring, thanks for the explanation about plugins. I don't suppose there is one to block all the RF noise in my subdivision. RF noise is a tough thing to play. There are some, filtering that can help lower the effects of that noise and kind of do some up to some level of noise cancellation, but man, noise is the killer. Noise is the killer of our hobby. I can tell you that. Device modder. I have one of those small rubber ducky antennas on my SDR, and I don't receive anything besides local radio. Yeah, you know, you will need better than that to actually have a good reception. If you can't put a outdoor antenna, the best bet you have is like an indoor MLA30 and something like that. The MLA30 is a pretty inexpensive loop to get, around $40-ish US. And a lot of the viewers here have it installed indoors because they can't put it outdoors. And it actually seems to work well for a lot of people. It's probably your best chance. You know. Canadian Radio TV guy, nice to have you on board. And says special channel 292 10th anniversary programming all day via all three frequencies on Monday, 0 to 23 UTC. Cool. Sheldon says a bunch of old bees need simple explanations also. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's I think it, you know, it's not just newbies, it's you know, playing around and handling what you have and the technology you use. That's for sure. Carmelo, nice to have you on board from Messina, Italy. Nice to have you here. Nice to have you here. Pretty cool. What else do we have? Matthew Lawson, thanks for your videos. I'm new to shortwave and I'm running a PL990X with an MLA30 antenna 25 feet up. Cool. Are you having a good time with your radios? Oh, yeah, a lot of those neighborhoods, a lot of neighborhoods are no good for antennas. I mean, here in Montreal, I remember hearing a story. There was a ham radio operator. Now he lives in the country. He actually made enough money. If it looks foggy, guys, by the way, it's because the sun is like on the camera for the next couple of minutes, but it shouldn't last too long. The ham operator lived in Montreal in the north part of Montreal, and he decided. So his ham hobby is something that he deeply cares about. And he erected a huge tower with where he lived, and he lived in a small home, and the neighbors went nuts and started creating all sorts of problems, and they would complain to the city. The city sent a a letter saying, well, you got to take down that antenna. It's not, it shouldn't be like that, or you shouldn't have that, or he had so many problems. And I remember when he was talking about that story and how one of the reasons he moved up north to a place where he actually purchased an old farm that was abandoned, and he was capable with the money he had to actually get the land. And his neighbors are like, far away. And I remember he was like, you know what? I live alone with no neighbors around, and I'm the happiest guy in the world with my ham hobby. And of course, the fact that he has a lot of land, he has the beautiful chance of erecting tons of really cool antennas up there, and he's really happy. But he was explaining and was talking about how a city dweller in a big city like Montreal, if you decide that you're going to erect an antenna for your ham hobby, be prepared, because depending on the neighbors you have and everything, it could be hell, and it could be super complicated. Montreal, one of the rules here in Montreal, there is actually a rule in Montreal about antennas that is stipulating that technically, if you have antennas, they should not be seen from the street. It's an actual rule here in the city. But of course, like probably most things like that, it depends if somebody complains or not. Nobody complains, probably they don't care. But if somebody complains, that's where hell breaks loose. That's for sure. Dennis Bargetzi, much credit for the redo on the signal to noise ratio. Not many YouTubers do that sort of thing. Yeah, well, it's I don't want to post a video for posting a video. That is something I don't like. I do not post videos just to post videos. I post videos for a purpose. Like I always say, my YouTube channel is a mix of some of it's kind of a logbook, if you want, a video logbook of what I receive or listen to. So sometimes I post videos of just stuff that I'm hearing for two reasons. It's kind of my logbook. So, I have a video proof that I heard that station at a certain time in my hobby. The other thing is, I think for a subset, they're not the most popular videos when I do that, but for a subset of users, they still kind of enjoy seeing what I'm receiving. So if I post a video of, listening to NHK Radio Japan, they're like, there's a subset of users out there that are like, no, I like that. And actually, I had one comment at a certain time. The guy was saying, I enjoy when you post the videos of you receiving something, because it's kind of cool. It makes me realize that we can hear some shortwave signals. And it makes me want to try it if I can listen to it or hear it where I live, But if I am to post a video explaining something, this one I removed the other one and did a new one. But oftentimes you guys don't see that I could have made a video, started looking at the video and everything and thinking, nah, I'm not going to post that. I'm not going to post that because it's not, I don't like the way that I explained something or the way that I talked about something. And I had a few this week that I didn't post. I was like, no, I don't like the way I explained this. Or I don't like the way that this went. Or I tried an explanation using a signal on shortwave and smack in the middle, the signal disappears or something. And you're like, yeah, okay. So there's a lot of that that I will actually create and not put online. The worst that I had was about a month ago. The SD card, for some reason, the SD card in my phone scrambled, and I had to reformat it. I had done 3 really nice videos. And I thought, well, I'll put all 3 together at the same time rather than putting them one by one. And when I finished the 3rd video, when I looked at the video, the phone was only displaying a gray screen with an error message. And I was like, what the hell is happening? And that's where I noticed that half of all the stuff that was on the SD card was now kind of scrambled, all weird. Which is not a problem because I save everything in the cloud. But the problem is those videos, while they were recording, weren't recording right. So they couldn't play back, and there was no way of, I even used a recovery program to see if it could actually recover the videos. And it just said, nope, I can't recover that. I don't even know what that is. So, oh man, that made me so mad. I remember I was set up for like a series of videos. And when that happened, I just went nuts. And I was like, okay, I'm doing something else. No more videos for today. I got enough. Spending all that time creating something, to finally have it all messed up and it doesn't work. It's like, oh God. Okay, I got enough for today. Rich, how often do you use external antenna switch for AM on 990X or 330? And has it ever produced a better signal over internal ferrite? I hear it isn't any improvement on AM band. It is if you have a proper antenna for it. But I have to say that it is surprising the level of signal you're getting from the internal ferrite. And I think the only times that it really works well is if you have a real dedicated medium wave antenna. Because if it's just by putting out your for example, I don't think that my MLA30 loop would give me a better signal on medium wave than my my 990X internal ferrite. I doubt that would happen. And I mean, I was able to hear Charleston Navtex on 518 kilohertz with the internal ferrite of the Texan, which blew my mind because it was like, wow, really? I don't even need an external antenna. The other thing I have, and I need to make a demonstration of that. So I have the AN200 Texan loop. And because it has a socket for plugging the antenna into an external antenna, the 990, of course, I've tried it. And it seems to work really, really well to use the loop antenna also from the Texan on it. But remember that the ferrites are surprisingly good antennas in portable receivers. And there are a series of these that, including the Texan PL990X, the XH Data D808, that have actually bigger ferrites in their radios than average receivers, which actually makes them even better. So to get better than the internal ferrite, especially if you don't have too much noise, you need a darn good antenna at that frequency range. Hey, Nora, you made a CW key today. Cool. David Gagnon says, what would happen if you hooked your SDR up to an SWR meter? Well, standing wave meters are for transmissions, not for receive. Now, of course, there's an indication in there that if your standing wave is good, technically you're tuned better. Technically, reception would probably be better. But the problem is a standing wave meter measures the power coming out of a transmitter to your antenna and how it's what part is reflected back or not in the system, if it works well or not. So and in just a receiver, there's no real way of doing that. Alpha Beta, nice to have you here from Vancouver Island. How do you change the signal to indicator to a clock on the Texan PL990X? You simply, there's a display button. I think it's charging right now. There we go. So, yep. So on when your radio's on and you're listening to some signals, you have the display that you can, let me just remember. I haven't used it much, so. Let me just time. Okay, time displays here. I'm just trying, okay, display button on the top of the radio. So I was searching for the display button. It's on the top. So on the top of the Texan PL990X, you have a button called display. And when that is on, when the radio's on, so you have, each time you press, you have different things. So you have the signal to noise ratio, That is what I have right now. Next one is there's the alarm. Next one is the clock. And then when you press display again, so there's a clock, the alarm, there's the signal to noise ratio, and then it comes back to, so you have the timers, 2 timers, plus clock, plus signal to noise ratio. You just go through them. So here, now I'm displaying time. So it's the button on the top of the radio. Nothing like these live demonstrations. I have so many radios, and true fact, when you have too many radios, one of the biggest problems that you have with too many radios is when you go and try to set things with the buttons, there are so many different ways to do it with different radios that at one point, if you haven't used a radio for some time, you're like, oh yeah, you could do that by, where's the button? I mean, you remember how to do it on another one, but you forgot to do it on this one because they all have a different way of doing it. Oh, God. What else do we have? Snow has begun in the Windy City, James Johnson. Here it's a beautiful sunset in Montreal tonight. It's cold though. It's a minus. We're at minus 11 right now, but my thermometer outdoor, my sensor might be in the sun right now. But it gives you an idea. Even in the sun, minus 11. Pretty crazy. Matthew, glad to be here. New viewer, got a Texan, got a PL990X and an MLA30. Cool. Oh yeah, there's a lot of info about stealth antennas and how to hide them and how to have antennas that just nobody knows about. But people see so much. I always have that story that I talk about when I put up my long wire in the backyard. And I thought nobody had seen me. And then the next door neighbor on the other side was like, what's that wire for? It's like, okay, you know. I hear quite a lot of stuff on the VHF, UHF, Dimitri here. We still have the provincial police. There's a lot of businesses that use two-way radios that are kind of interest. I like to listen to amateur radio satellites a lot. And there's quite a few little things when you start tuning around. We have a few studio to mic transmitters of some of the TV stations here in Montreal. It's surprising what you can get still. It's a question of searching for the frequencies a lot, though. Killer Cobra. What is it called when weather data is transmitted over shortwave? I'm pretty sure I heard some of that yesterday. If you're talking about the voice weather broadcasts, depending on what type of broadcast it is, because there's marine weather broadcasts, and the other thing is VOLMET, VOLMET, which are aeronautical weather stations. They give airport weather. So these are VOLMET, LVOLMET. What else do we have? Can I get that? But Chill has a sloper, a more common wire. I find wire drives up noise. Wire in a noisy environment, wires are noisy. They pick up all the noise around. That's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah, it's possible that they're not. Not. I would go two ways here, David. Not just that they're not calibrated or don't seem to be calibrated into something. I find that they seem to not accurately measure the signal to noise also. Anthony, nice to have you here. Solkov, will you review the Malashite SDR receiver when you have a chance? Yeah, if I can. We'll see. Not being a millionaire is a big problem. If I was a millionaire, all of these radios would be reviewed. I'd buy this single new receivers all the time. So, but it's something that you got to live with. Unfortunately, we are not all rich. Matthew, been trying to receive the BBC here in East Tennessee. Very difficult with the MLA30 and Texan PL990X. Well, the BBC, it's not a question of the MLA or the 990X. It's a question of the BBC doesn't pack a very big signal in general because it's broadcasting towards other areas. Your best bet is 12095 and 11810 in the around this time of day and in local afternoon. My best signal from the BBC is past midnight at 05. They fire up 5875 and 6005. Those two frequencies are really, really good. Really, really good. But you got to stay up until midnight. 15400 is to try from time to time, depending on propagation. But for sure, the BBC is targeting Africa for most part. So it's a lot of that signal is not coming in our direction. I would love if the BBC would have a great transmission on a perfect frequency from the Madagascar relay station. What's nice with that is that the Madagascar relay station, when it broadcasts to Africa, it is in the general North America direction. And almost all the stations from the Madagascar relay station come in so well here. Let's check out, I believe that we have Radio Romania coming on, if I'm not mistaken. So Radio Romania would be on 7310 maybe.
Detector type set to LSB.
Yeah, 7310.
Detector type set to AM.
It's not very strong though, compared to what I'm used to. I usually have a better signal than that, but 7310. Hey, Kadarius, nice to have you on board. And Paul the Cat, the real star of the show. Matthew Lawson. So that's, BBC is not the easiest, but try it regularly. You'll see that some days are better than others. Brian Penny, nice to have you here from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And yes, Paul is now using my hoodie. Well, he's not here right now, but the hoodie is on the chair. Actually, this is the chair he wants. He's not happy when I'm using this chair. So now he's in the bedroom. William Helms, nice to have you here from Florida. Nice to have you on board. I'll try to catch up in the chat room a little bit. I'm far away. So what else do we have? Richard Roberts from the UK used to be into scanning back in the day. I've come across your channel by chance. I haven't heard about SDR before. Just wondering if it works in the UK. SDRs worked everywhere. These are radios. An SDR is a radio. It's a software-defined receiver. So it's a little box usually that you have. Let me just... I hate the fact that it's too bright here in the back. Here we go. So it's technically a radio. In this case, what I'm using is a small Airspy HF Plus Discovery. You have SDR play devices that are in the UK. Company is in the UK, actually. and they work everywhere. It's just that it's a radio controlled by a computer. Simply that. Simply put, it's just that. Michael Satterfield, nice to have you on board from South Carolina, K4AFT. Daryl, nice to have you here, WS0H in Minnesota. Let me just try to go down. Kathleen has U.S. National Guard AIL USB. You listen to that. Would not be affected by RFID. Yeah, it could. Well, it's a little. It's upper sideband, so you're moving away from the RFID stuff, which is on 13560 precisely. I've heard quite a few. I've heard quite a few of the U.S. Shares frequencies in the 3 megahertz range last week, the week before. Pretty surprising. A lot of activity and a lot of communications there. Mars military also all in the 3 megahertz range, and a few evenings. A lot of nets and a lot of communications from U.S. Government, U.S. military. It was very interesting, and I still have no idea what that Morse code was on 32 something that I posted. Definitely, it is a definitely it is man-made because it's all over the place in the speed. I have no idea what I listened to. He was sending letters and numbers, and that's it. That was a weird one. PDX H0B0 Shaq, nice to have you here. Joe Blasco, LU6GB, amateur radio in Argentina, present in this live. Thank you very much. Argentina is in the house. Pretty cool. Robert Osborne from Niagara Falls, nice to have you here. Alan White, nice to have you from the snowy hills and the little town of Hatfield, 15 miles east of Manchester, England, picking up 14 megahertz, 20 meter band. Here, USA and Canada coming through. Fantastic. Cool. Bob Lewin, nice to have you here from New Jersey. Sorry to catch up a little bit. Random Hobbyist, nice to have you on board. Regarding your comment about a ham and tower issue, I was under the impression when licensed in Canada under the Innovation, Science, and Economic Development were protected. No, there's been a lot of cases. If your neighbors go nuts on you, you're not necessarily protected. It's very, very complex. It seems to be more of a city regulation that's in the way. I know of a few hams that did talk over the years. They had problems, but after going to court and doing all the efforts, they finally, a lot of them won their right for the antennas and everything. But then it's the other thing, do you want to go through all of that crap to keep your that really defines if you really if somebody would come to me and start bashing at the fact that I have antennas outside and would complain or anything, it's up to what point am I willing to go through all of that crap just to keep my antennas up. I might simply think of how can I put the antennas up in another way that nobody knows about it. Probably, Kathleen says people don't like antennas. I remember going, well, they don't like antennas for a lot of stuff. One of the things is the fact that antenna towers. People find that it's an ugly thing to look at in the neighborhood. But a lot of people, I've noticed a lot of people have the impression that you have an antenna up. It's like in the good old CB days. You're going to be interfering with something. It's kind of a weird thing to have. Kevin says he sees an official shortwave blooper reel coming. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of beeping. I have to bleep out a lot of the swear words. Oh, man. Yeah, apartment complexes and condos. Condos are the worst place for anybody that wants to do radio listening. There's so much regulation, and most of them will never be able to have any type of outdoor antenna. Blind Picker Rob, nice to have you here. W0RAB in Connecticut. Cold. It's cold here too. Stephen Wood says NBC Zambia putting a fair signal on 5915. And maybe I could try that. 5915. 5915. Am I hearing anything here? I barely see a peep. There's something there, but it's barely visible. I do have
SHIRE 21 Berkshire Lane.
5950.
Number 263.
5940. 5980, I think, is Turkey. Mali with music on 5995. Not very strong, but it's there. That's Mali with music. There's DRM on 6030. Weak. That's CFRX Toronto on 6070.
For many small businesses, but financial support is available from the government of Ontario, from grants of up to $20,000 for eligible small businesses to support were held in the past and other Romanian cities.
Radio Romania on 6170.
Solidarity Federation held rallies and picketed several ministries, angry that the government doesn't increase salaries for all healthcare employees after a year when they were on the front lines of the fight against COVID-19. Unionists with Cartel ANSA also continued union action started on January.
6195 is Voice of America in, I think it's from Botswana or one of the African relays also. So there's a few signals, interesting signals on 49 meters right now. I'm barely hearing Zambia. 206 viewing right now. Pretty cool. What else do we have? Robert Osborne has Channel Radio in English from Mali on 13630. And it's Norfolk. Nice to have you here. You started refurbishing the GE Super Radio 1 and 2. Cool, Chuck. That's great. Just wondering, without seeing what is going on, can you adjust the height of your antenna? My antennas are pretty much fixed in the way they are. What else do we have? What else do we have? We check it out here. Thomas Lane says we're lucked out again, weather-wise, once again, on the very northern edge of the snowstorm. Wow. Sean McKee, nice to have you here. Confused over antenna types. Start with a wire antenna. Honestly, just start with a wire antenna. And then move your way up. You'll see what happens. I think the best thing to do is to have an antenna, a basic antenna like a wire, and then you could look at the loop like an MLA30, for example, if there's too much noise around you. Gunner66, saw your decent video of the Texan PL330 option to keep the backlight permanently on. There wouldn't happen to be a hidden feature in the 680. No, unfortunately. I also am sad that the PL680 cannot keep its backlight on. That always bothered me so much. I never understood why, because the PL600 you could, and I never understood why the PL680 they couldn't just have that, hold the button and it's going to stay on all the time. I like having I just don't understand why they didn't have that. It's, I love having the backlight on all the time. I find that it's cool on the radio to have it, especially when it's starting to get darker. I always find it cool. What else do we have? Let me just check it out here. Yeah, BBC Radio Moscow and all of that were really, really booming in. Absolutely. 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 Let me just check it out. Dimitri says, I was listening signals on the web SDR on the computer to find some VHF signals. Joseph Ickenbaum, nice to have you here, says lots of military stuff heating up all around the world. There's a lot of stuff that are there on the military side. It's surprising when you start listening in all the nets and all the government agencies that are on, and recent tensions everywhere. And I'm wondering if they haven't kind of reactivated some of the stuff that was dormant and now is a lot more active, just in case. Rodney Bedford, what do I think of the MLA30 loop antenna or 30 plus? It's a great antenna. It's anybody in a noisy environment, it's a really, really great antenna. Paranoid Nolan, Radio Romania coming in well here in Ireland on 7310 on the Yaesu FRG7 and a G5 RV antenna. Cool. James Johnson is buying a Volvo just because it's got a good AM radio. Critiker 313 just bought a PL990X. Great radio. It's an amazing radio. Honestly, it's a really, really good radio. Tony in Guelph, Ontario. Nice to have you on board. Robert Osborne, yeah, Radio Romania 7310, clear in Niagara Falls. Tom Grant, nice to have you here. W5PGS. Mr. Bell says there is one place worse than apartments for radio listening. It's called a hotel. Oh, yeah, it's probably not the best place. I've never done hotel radio listening, but I would not be expecting the best reception. Yeah. Actually, when I moved here, the first antenna I have ever had when I moved here, the clothesline was a metal one of those clothesline with the metal wire in the middle. And since I had a washer and dryer and never use it, I removed a little bit of the insulation and clipped my coax to it. And that, for the first 3 or 4 years, was the antenna I was using for shortwave. And even though it was noisy, because, you know, I for those that don't know the story, when I moved here, I finally realized what noise was all about. I thought it was noisy where I lived before. To understand it here, it's noise, it's hell. And over there was heaven. And I never realized it was heaven. Because we always complain of the noise. We always complain that it's noisy, even you know, when you're in a quiet place, every little bit of extra noise is making us go nuts. And one of the problems with that is we sometimes are not in the reality of what the real world is all about. And that's what happened here. I thought that where I lived before was noisy until I moved here and noticed I was actually living in radio heaven, and that here is radio hell. And you know, this is the third apartment that I lived, and of course, the first one was I was living with my parents, and that was quiet. They were in the 80s. In the 90s, the apartment I had was very quiet. And for some reason, because you've been in quiet environments, you don't really talk much. You don't really think much about anything of noise, or, you know, it's kind of not part of your, you know, your way of thinking. Noise isn't that big of a problem. So you're not thinking that moving somewhere might be, you know, might be really going crazy. And then I moved here and I was like, oh boy, now this was a challenge. And I have to admit, for a couple of years, my radio didn't get turned on much. Noise was so high that it kind of turned me off of radio for a while. But, you know, when you're a real radio geek, you end up kind of wanting to come back and try it again. And then I, of course, started again and was thinking of how I could put up antennas and different wires outdoors and stuff to see if I can make it better. But it is a difficult situation. Here it's a tough one. And I'm happy with the loops, because the MLE30 particularly is brought back part of what I couldn't listen to before. And at least it, you know, it kind of reversed a little bit the hell of noise that I have here. Joseph says 5915, nothing in California. Chimbali Mr. Bell says 5950, weak carrier near Oregon. David Gagnon, my antenna is a MLA30 loop outdoors right now. And it's on the front balcony. Let's try to get down as fast as we can. Northern Dawn, nice to have you on board. Good evening. EP 1977, nice to have you here. Listening to 1341 medium wave. Carlos, for me, the most important signal noise ratio feature is when the last 2 digits is greater than 08. You got a nice clear signal, and the radio uses that for ATS, ETM criteria to decide to store or not. Yeah. Yeah, I'm asking myself the same question. Oh, okay. I got it. No politics, guys, okay? Yeah, he's been here before, Matt. Let's just not talk about politics, please. Okay, no politics. Really, no politics. It's a zero politics and zero religion zone. It is the two major criteria here: no politics and no religion zone. So no politics, okay? Let's we can kind of give a chance. When it's just one political comment, we just say no politics. Next time you're banned for good. Just give a good warning. I think it's worth it. And then okay, what else do we have? Joe Gomez, nice to have you here from San Diego, California. EP 1977. A bit of a historical question here. Anyone in US, Canada have any shortwave radio stories from 9/11? Like, how did you find out? Did you detect any military broadcasts? It's hard. I have this weird, when something really major happens in world events, for some reason it doesn't happen very often that I have a hunch of like turning on their shortwave radio. And when that happened, it also was one of the biggest problems of that was probably it was in my time of very low radio listening, because I had when 9/11 happened, I was here for barely more than a year, and I was starting out my business in tech, computer repair stuff. So I was very busy with other things, and unfortunately, radio was not part of anything. I would have been fascinated to hear air traffic control shortwave frequencies when it happened. Because, they were diverting all the planes everywhere. And a lot of them actually sending them here to Canada. And I would have loved to hear what air traffic control must have been like in that day. It must have been something. It must have been really, really an interesting listen. But all I remember is I woke up that day. I woke up and I got a call from my mom saying, "Hey, did you see what happened in New York?" And I was like, I didn't listen to the news, watch the news or anything. I was waking up. I was taking my breakfast and packing stuff to go and give out ads for my tech business. I was in my own little bubble. So I turned on the TV to see what she was talking about. And that's when I actually never went out to give out the flyers. I just sat down. And when the second plane hit, I just sat down and thought, well, okay, this is something major now that's happening. It's not just an accident. And I probably spent the next 4 or 5 hours just watching TV and seeing what happens. But there must have been quite a few things that could have been interesting to follow on shortwave, and especially the air traffic control. That must have been a very interesting one to monitor at the time, for sure. I'm sure some shortwave listeners probably did that. They immediately jumped on the radios to the air traffic frequencies. That must have been quite an event to listen to. Yeah, it's very limited, Keegan. The problem is it's very limited. The options of I actually don't put anything automatic because it's super complicated. I tried the automatic process because I have a switch here because it's my channel that I can automatically have post deleted due to the content. And I tried it once, and you learn that it's not a good idea because it blocks things that it shouldn't. For some reason, it's not perfect. It's weird the way that it's very limited the way that everything is. But I think we should agree on something. If somebody pops in, posts a political comment or a religious comment, you could just say no political or religion at all. First, only warning. There's only one warning possible. And once that warning is done, if it repeats, then it's blocked, and that's it. Sometimes it's not, I understand that we shouldn't from the start have any of those comments on the channel. That's for sure. But sometimes, emotions get in and you say something. It's just, we don't want that here. There's enough of all of that everywhere. We don't want that here. Here it's radio. Okay, can I hear the Super Dawn radio on 11475? The radar. 11475. Am I getting something there? 11475. 75. Nope. I'm not getting anything really there. I don't see anything really on the waterfall. I could see sorry guys. I could see 11910, the DRM from Brazil. That's on 11910. Sorry. And I could actually see that there's Brazil Radio Nacional Amazonas 11780. Radio Nacional Amazonas Brazil 11780, coming in quite well. Hector Vasquez says, I also have lots of noises, but I use a RF Systems T2 FD traveling wave antenna. It's magnetic. Yeah, everything that's magnetic loops and magnetic, they are designed in a way that a lot of the noise is avoided. American Hanks, nice to have you here from Virginia. Tony Magnier, nice to have you here. Most folks used to give out to me about all the wires and antennas running around the house. Audi MLA30 Plus now and having great fun with the RSPDX. Cool. Hey, Kimberly, K6YYL. Nice to have you on board from California. California. Are there other crafts? No brothers there. I'll have one comment on Brothers there. I like the new way that Glenn Hauser talks about his broadcasts. It's he calls them the Tombs broadcast. And so I'm listening to World of Radio, and he's talking about new broadcasts on WRMI. And he says, well, that's good because there's going to be less of the Tombs broadcasts. And I'm like, the Tombs broadcast? What are you talking about? And he says, Tombs for the Overcomer Ministry Brothers there. And I'm like, okay. So next time he says, oh, I was listening to some Tombs broadcasts. It's like, okay, it's Brothers there. I like that. It made me laugh. It was like, well, okay, Glenn Hauser made me laugh here. Imagine Glenn Hauser makes you laugh. That's something. That's saying something. Ban everything. Hey, nice to have you here. Shelly Sykes, nice to have you here, Shelly. Ghosts and aliens are acceptable topics to me, anyways, as long as they send radio signals. Okay? We want to hear aliens. NS Norfolk hearing 5915 on the PL660. So, yeah, you're on the East Coast, so it's easier. Ghosts and aliens on the radio. We want to have ghosts and aliens on the radio. Man, everything. I have a Texan PL660. Great. Very sensitive radio. Is the 880 word the upgrade? If you mean in the upgrade of I will get things that I don't hear on the 660, no. Because you won't. If you mean a upgrade in the a little more flexibility on the tuning, especially in single sideband, and much better sound quality, then yes. And it's sexy. The 880 is very sexy radio. But if it's only in the I will get more on that 880 than the 660, you won't. So that's pretty much where it is. It's like the 990X, you know. I can't really say to anyone to upgrade to that if they have a radio. If you get it, you get it, and it's a great radio. But if you don't get it, if you have something already, I don't know. It's more of a personal thing here. Robert Osborne, real good tonight. 5940 Radio Algérienne from the France Relay. Yep, it's from Issoudun, France. Absolutely. Michael, is Brother Stare simply a ham? No, he's not a ham. Brother Stare is paying airtime on the big transmitters like WRMI. So American Hank says about to buy shortwave radio. Once I decide which one. Last time I hit a shortwave was in the mid 80s. Used to sit up all night as a kid on weekends listening to weird stuff from around the world. Yeah, one of the things is if you haven't tuned shortwave since the 1980s, prepare yourself to be shocked. But there's still a lot of stuff. There's still a lot of stuff to listen to, for sure. Baltazar Martinez, PD0EA. Nice to have you on board. Tony, greetings from Ireland. Nice to have you here. Matt says, even if I was into the hobby in 9/11, I had to go into work that day and wouldn't have had many opportunities. I remember how eerie it was that there weren't planes in the sky. So imagine air traffic control, how it must have been amazing to listen to that day. Ecadarius says, Paul the Cat is king. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Unfortunately, the stray cat is a female, and he doesn't seem to want to have a queen. Man. Man, everything is not getting anything on 5915 in Louisiana. Bad insulator and power pole there where you are. Oh, this is bad. You know, I had that problem where I lived before, where I was talking, it was Radio Evan. When I moved there, every time it was humid or every time it was a rainy day, I would have this incredible static that would block my shortwave reception. And on really dry days, it was okay. And you know what you should do if you have that type of problem? Call your power company where you live, ban everything. I've found here, I know that I've found, and I've heard a lot of stories of people doing that, and they seem to be very cooperative. They really help out. You tell them that, you know, try to identify, use that portable radio and put it on AM and walk near the pole and try to identify which one it is. And you'd be surprised at how they want to fix that, because remember, if there's a bad insulator, there's a power leak, and there's, you know, all sorts of problems that can happen with that. So often they'll send a crew and fix it. That's what they did here. I was surprised. I thought, I'm going to waste my time calling them up. And I was surprised that no, I didn't waste my time at all. A crew called me back, I think the next day, and said, "Oh, is that happening now?" And they were really, really good at helping out. Keegan says, was 5 at the time. My dad, W9JEF, dropped me off at kindergarten. After that, he turned on the TV and saw the coverage. Yep. The all the planes. That must have been quite a thing to listen to on the shortwave. Pretty crazy. Joseph Nusser says the key to success as a bartender is to never talk about money, sex, religion, or politics. There is no way a group of strangers will ever agree on those subjects. I like going out at the bar for a few beers, and I can tell you that we avoid these subjects of religion and politics. Usually, you just avoid, because you obviously never agree on anything, and that is, it goes the wrong way. The best shortwave related bar story I can talk about is I'm at a bar and there's this guy that's listening to music, and he's in his bubble. He's listening to his music on his phone, and a weird guy, that he's in his bubble, but for some reason he decides that he's going to talk to me, and of course I'm not super happy about it, because I was in my bubble and I was like, yeah, I'm kind of happy being alone in my bubble right now. So, I'm looking at videos on my phone and stuff and having my beer, and he starts talking. And at some point, he looks at me and says, I'm going to pay you a beer if you can tell me what type of music this is. So he gives me one of the earbuds. I put it in my ear and I said, "Oh, that's Turkish music." He looks at me. He's like, "How do you know it's Turkish music? Nobody knows that." And he looks at me and he says, "Are you Turkish?" I said, "No, I'm not Turkish. I'm, a Canadian guy." And so now he fills up his promise. He buys me a beer, and that's where I started talking to him. I said, the reason I know is because I listen to international radio on shortwave, which he doesn't know what it is. And I said, simple fact is that there's the voice of Turkey that I hear regularly, and I recognize immediately that was Turkish music because I hear it all the time on Voice of Turkey. He was so amazed. He was like, okay. And he paid me the beer, and he said, look, I'm happy to pay you the beer. And I said, oh, cool, thanks. You don't have to. I looked at him. I said, you don't have to pay me a beer. I don't care. I can pay my own beer. But the funniest story, shortwave related, that guy with his Turkish music. As simple as that. What else do we have? Chester Johnson, nice to have you on board. And he's got a good signal on 5800. Sean McKee, can you explain your waterfall? Okay. Basically what you see here, there's a top part, there's a bottom part. The top part is the blue part of the bottom. The top is kind of my noise floor. It's where my receiver is, all the noise at the bottom. And the spikes that come out of it are the signals that my radio is receiving. So there are spikes everywhere on the top part. And I'm going to put it on another range where there's even more spikes. We're going to go to 6,000 kilohertz, 49 meter band. And here, look at all the spikes in the 49 meter band. So you got spikes at the top. So these are all the signals that are stronger than my noise floor, which is the general noise when you hear just static. And the bottom part is a representation of that signal. So depending on the audio, what's playing, if it's music, if it's a digital something, it has a pattern in the bottom, and that pattern follows the audio of the broadcast, the talk, anything. So if somebody would stop talking, it would stop, if you have a thick line like the one here, that line shows a signal in the middle and talk. So if I go and click on it, it says it's on 5950 kilohertz. I get this, which is music, 5950. If that music would stop, what you would see, you would still see the spike. You would still see a line that gives me tells me that there's a signal there, but you would not see how that each side is that information on each side, because it's all the audio that gives the information on each side there. So basically, it's all the signals that my radio is getting at a certain range. Here I'm receiving from 5600 all the way to 6300. And so my radio is getting all of those signals at the same time, and I can click somewhere to just bring back one of the signals. So if I go here, for example, there's another one that's strong, 6115. I click on it and I listen in. There's some music here too.
You came by to check on
and
me.
talk.
Learned to love my grandparents. We'd sit on the porch and drink
So you hear the stations that are there. So it's really information about all the signals that you can pick up, basically. Yeah, yeah, passion for radio, and that's all we have here, and that's the important thing here. Joseph Fickenbaum 11780, fading with lots of noise. My cat Sunday says hi to Paul. Cool. Paul is sleeping in the bedroom, so I'll let him know. Neeson Greenwich, nice to have you on board. Bought the Texan PL 368 for my 5K trips to the beach here in Dublin. I'll let you know how it is when it arrives. Yeah, I purchased the PL 368 today also. I purchased the orange colored one. So there's the black one, the regular black charcoal colored one. And there's one that is that's orange. And that's the one I purchased, actually. So James Johnson, 720 WGN Chicago evening show. Not a lot to talk about politics. That's good. That's good. No politics. Dwayne Lemler, nice to have you here. Dwayne. Kevin Joyce, anyone interested in building shortwave radio, a very satisfying aspect of the hobby. Nice to have you on board from the UK. Absolutely. Building is always fun. I like the morning sessions of Brothers there. RJ Mose, I got my shortwave on and I can't find you. Well, I'm not on shortwave, I'm on YouTube. American Hank says, yeah, I know it's very different. So much has changed and gone away. A lot is still there, but targeted to different areas. So the signals are not as strong. And that's the other thing also. Vince Shirley, G0ORC. Nice to have you here. And I'm happy to be here for the stream. Always nice. It's fun to have, and I always say it, I wish I had I had this type of stream from some guy somewhere when I was started in my hobby. It would have been something I would have watched because I would have enjoyed having somebody else talk about to talk about radio and learn more about radio also at the same time. Basically, yeah, what I say most of the time, what I say most of the time is when somebody complains that there's too much brother stare, I always say, well, you got that tuning knob on the radio, you can tune somewhere else. Just ignore it, NS Norfolk, yep, take an AM radio. If the noise from the power pole, take a small. Yeah, it's easy to I had pinned down the exact pole where it was coming also. So pretty crazy. Yep, the Texan PL 660 band, everything is a great radio. Absolutely. Very nice radio. Northern Dawn would like to hear more music shows on shortwave. WTW, yeah. Even WRMI has a lot of music in moments where there's no shows or anything. They do have quite a lot of different music time slots throughout the day. Carlos, takes skill to distinguish Turkish and Greek music until you hear the lyrics. It's a question of having heard both, and also I would say there's the difference in first of all, there's a difference in the music itself. And the second thing is there's a when you get used to it. When I say try to understand, try to learn the differences in the languages, that even if you don't know what they're talking about because you don't understand the language, you can still know by the pronunciation what language it is. And there's a definite difference that's easy to see between Turkish and Greek. And the music itself often also. So being someone that listened a lot to shortwave and Voice of Greece and Voice of Turkey and all of that, you end up kind of getting there. One of the languages I've started distinguishing more is Romanian, because I stumbled on Radio Romania from time to time and I'm like, oh, that must be Radio Romania. Even though there are other broadcasts that might have Romanian in it, but it's here when I hear Romanian, it's Radio Romania in general. Steve, is there a way to prevent the light from switching off on the PL 660? No, it's like the 680. Unfortunately, it's something that you can't. There's nothing you can do about it. TVDX, sir, bonjour, ça va bien? J'espère que ça va bien toi aussi. Nice to have you here. Nissan Greenwich, Algeria 6040. Yep, I think 6040 is also Algeria from the Issoudun, France transmitter site. Ban everything. I haven't learned all the features of the 660. I learned just the basics and tossed the book in the drawer. Well, that's what we all do, basically. Okay, what else do we have? Yeah, NS Norfolk. I just purchased a PL 368 in the orange color. When I saw it in orange, I immediately on the eBay website where I purchased it, you could choose a color. I immediately clicked the color orange. I wanted to have it orange. I thought, oh, that's going to be nice. Orange colored radio. It's going to be cool to have. So can't wait for that. I can't wait to see it. It's really looks really nice. Vince Shirley been shortwave listening since 1964 and finally licensed as G0ORC in 1989. Shame the number of stations has decreased so much, but still plenty to hear, especially in Europe. Yeah, absolutely. Dimitri, I haven't heard much from Russia lately. I've last time I heard something from Russia, I was actually testing out trying to get those channel markers, those single letter Morse code channel markers, and I heard a few here, but haven't heard a lot from Russia and lately. Last time I heard the buzzer was more than a month ago, probably. Glenn Zekman, nice to have you here, Glenn. Matt, yep, the morning hour is always good for a laugh. Absolutely. Us screaming preacher is also something. And that's Norfolk, been ham for 47 years, K8HU, but shortwave broadcast DX is my first love. Well, a lot of people come from shortwave listening, became hams. A lot of people that became hams also are CBers, CB radio guys that came ham. That there's a lot of that going on, for sure. Oh, you can't ignore Stare. That's for sure. That's for sure. Tell me something good. I'm a newbie. I've read 375 pages of ham radio for dummies. Now I'm reading past your amateur radio technical class. Not asking any questions, just watching. Cool. Well, get that license. If you've read all of that, go get that license. Christy, good evening. What's your opinion on the Texan AN48X antenna? Look, if you're going to spend that amount of money for an AN48X from Texan, get yourself an MLA30. The Texan AN48X, and I need to get mine back out of the box. It's not that it doesn't necessarily work. In some frequency ranges, it does work. But it's so finicky to tune that it's almost crazy. If it wasn't for that, it might not have been that bad, but you got to fine tune the button until you get the signal stronger. And in some cases, it's actually worse. There are ranges of frequencies where the stations are actually not getting better with that antenna. They're actually getting worse and more noise. And at the price that they sell it, you're not very far from an MLA30 and a loop antenna that is audio tuned. You don't have to tune it. You don't have to touch anything. It works the way it is, and that's it. So if you're going to spend the money on a Texan AN48X, then spend that money on an MLA30 loop instead. It's going to give you much more performance for the price paid. Joseph Nussin 5950, which you just played, did have music going. They switch over to a digital music feed. They run whenever there's no schedule paid programming. It's the Global 24 lesson. Radioactive, nice to have you here from Oregon. Today is a great day to listen to shortwave stations, 15770 S5 in Oregon. Joseph Hickenbaum, NHK World Radio, 11910 strong into the central coast of California. Connie Con GP5 and MLA30. 2022. Mark Bose says my first choice was C-Crane CC2E for this apartment. Twin ferrous antenna, 4D cell batteries. 1D XH data DO8 for my person on the run camping SSB and weather. That C-Crane receiver is known to be a very good receiver for medium wave DXers. Totally. And as Norfolk, enjoying shortwave is like taking a worldwide trip and experiencing other cultures without leaving your home. Yep, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Joseph Nusam, ITKBC, also appears on 5950 kilohertz. Matt says AWR via Guam, decent signal in Colorado on 11990. Cool. Cool. Because there's no interest for me in internet radio, Bill. The only thing that internet radio gives me that's interesting was music. I have nothing against it. People that like it, fine. But I have absolutely no interest in it. It's not. I don't find it interesting to listen to something on via the internet. Simply, I have a few podcasts, things like that I listen, but that's it. So I have nothing against it. I'm not. It doesn't turn me on. It's mostly that. Like Sean McKee says, if all fails, just read the instructions. God. Radioactive is hearing CHU on 14670. Cool. John Brocato, best way to get started with SDR. Actually, the best way to get started with SDR at a price that is price versus performance decent is the I still think the best entry level is the SDR Play RSP1A, because at the price versus performance you aren't going wrong and it works great. Then after that there could be other things, but I would not go below that, because you can start cheaper with like the RTL SDR V3, but it has spurious signals everywhere, and you hear shortwave broadcasts that aren't on frequencies that shouldn't be there. It's kind of a mess on shortwave. Even though it is sensitive, it is a mess on shortwave, because you don't even know if what you're receiving is correct, especially when you start out. If you don't know what frequencies things are, I got a few people saying, well, you know what? Oh, look at that. I get so many signals compared to what I had before. Yeah, but it's because, half of the signals you see there are not real. They're images of the other ones. And people tend to think that it's because it's great. No, it's not. It's a crappy little thing in general. It gets signals, and when you know what frequencies they are on, you can use it and know that you're listening to something there. But it's multiplied by, I don't know, because you get you're in the CB band and you get shortwave broadcasts. So it's like it messes up everywhere. And I can't, it's not the best way to start. The best way to start is to have something that, has a good performance versus price ratio. And it would be the SDR Play RSP1A at $119. I think that's the best way to start. Airspy, I'm not sure, because Airspy, it really depends what you're going to do. And if you are a wideband listener, Airspy is no good for you. That's for sure. And I need to continue testing, but if the Airspy has AM radio overload like I have here, I have a hard time telling people to buy the Airspy. It all depends. But I think price versus performance, the SDR Play RSP1A is still the winner. For the rest, then, there's a lot of things that it depends. The Airspy, if you're somebody that experiments and likes experimenting, the fact that it uses the SDR Sharp software that you can use and has so many plugins that had features, that could be a thing. That could be something that's interesting. Joseph Nusas says the Texan AN48X did not improve my reception in a noisy apartment environment. It helped here in a little bit of signals, but generally talking, it's too finicky and too you just go crazy rather than anything else at some point. I'm not Chuck. Then who are you? Do you think a specialized antenna of some kind would outperform a simple 135-foot long wire? So here's the thing. If you live in that's pretty much most of the time what I say. If you live in a very quiet environment that doesn't have a lot of noise, Um, the wire antenna will outperform pretty much everything that you could have. If it's noisy where you are, that's another story. If it's noisy where you are, that 135-foot long wire gets so much noise that getting something like a magnetic loop like the MLE30 is going to probably be better. But a magnetic loop does not at all perform better than a long wire. That's very important. In a quiet environment, like I said, it's it's depends on your environment if there's a lot of noise or not. Using Greenwich, can any of you guys on the east coast of North America hear Radio Iceland on longwave 189.207? Here, longwave is pretty much non-existent, but I'm sure that people close to the Atlantic Ocean and the East Coast might. Only 64. Shout out to SDR Trunk. Joseph has Mali and 5995. Yep, that's what I was listening to a little earlier. Ari says, is the AOR LA400 loop good? Here's the thing. You know what? The big gun loops that are expensive, they all perform well. Don't get me wrong. They don't all perform well. But when you get, I've got a W6 LVP loop that's very expensive. And I know that by seeing a lot of people testing out, I've seen quite a few videos of guys testing, really doing big tests of the W6 LVP against a Wellbrook and against, the AOR 400 loop. And you notice that there's such little difference, but such a big difference in price that I'm going to tell you, the MLE30 is so close to these expensive loops that I cannot tell people to buy expensive loops at all. VE2FGJ. Do you know what are the HF comms around 3200, 3300 USB military? Sounds like HF network tests. There are some that are Mars networks. Mars is the military auxiliary radio system. It's kind of a amateur radio side to the U.S. Air Force. And they often run nets that sound almost like nets on the amateur bands. So you'll hear that. There's a few frequencies that are also what's called the shares network, which is kind of a U.S. government network for communications. So there's a few things like that in there, but a lot of them are either government, military. We have the equivalent here. A few months ago, I was hearing the CFARS, which is the Canadian Forces Auxiliary System, which is the Canadian equivalent of Mars, and for the Canadian Air Force. So there's a lot of military stuff in there and government stuff in there, definitely. But a lot of them have to do with Mars nets, which are military auxiliary radio system. Take care, Tom DXer. 73, stay safe. NS North folks says, quick compare PL660, PL990, 5915, same antenna. Can clear here programming on the 660, but can only make out, say, every 3 words on 990. Could depend on the way that it's set up, or I don't know. Kind of interesting. What else do we have? Yep, Texan analog radios are great. The Texan receivers in general are pretty good. Pretty good. Let's go down here. Lee Burkett have some CB chatter on 3 megahertz now. Huh. No, in very quiet environments, wires are better. That's definite. It's really where their noise is. If it's extremely noisy, that a loop now will help you out. It's like here. You know, if I look at my sloper, which is roughly 80 feet long in the backyard, I get as strong of a signal, if not more, than my ML830 will give me. But it gets so much noise with it that it's almost impossible to listen to. And my ML830 will actually give me audio. Retroman bought a new air scanner today by Steepletone called the MBR 1051. Huh, interesting. Joseph never had any luck with longwave DXing on the East Coast. I had faint reception at BBC. R4 longwave once from the beach in New Jersey years ago. I think it has to do a lot with your noise level and the type of antenna you're using. And of course, being close to the ocean as much as possible. Yeah, it's the winter field day this weekend. Does this have a lot of activity compared to the regular summer version? Robert Osborne says, nice music on 5950. And his GMRS going crazy tonight. Love Saturday. Yeah, lots of stuff. Lots of stuff to listen to. Yeah, here is a very noisy location. I'm not Chuck. Lots of stuff. What else do we have? Joe Lotorco, what's a spur? What does it sound like? Well, spurs are mostly it depends what it comes from. You know, like you could have spurs, or you could have strong medium wave signals popping up everywhere. So you'll have one station, real strong station in your area, and it pops up on frequencies it should not show up. It's simply that you could have spurs or little peaks of all that station in multiple different locations on your waterfall, for example, in an SDR. Chuck CP Davis, CC Skywave, Texan PL330 comparison video would be cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, they're the same kind of size, and that could be a nice one. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you know the Texan R97DX? My thoughts on it. Is it good for the price? What I know is that because it's an analog radio, that for the most people that have one seem to say that it's very, very surprising in performance. So that I don't have one, but most people that have one seem to say that it's amazing. Alan White, the socket that holds the telescopic antenna just broke on my St. Jean ATS 803. What should I do? Okay, it's the socket itself or the antenna. If it's the antenna, you can change it. If it's the socket, best thing you could do is maybe take out the back of the radio and see what you could do to fix that. Matt says, I don't think winter field day is as nearly as possible. One thing for sure is that you really want to, especially if it's cold, you really want to do the field day because it is pretty cold. Harry, Texan S2000, now that's a radio worth the money you pay for. Yeah, not everybody agrees on that, but you know, the important thing is is being happy with what you have, and that is one of the things that I often say is, you know, you're happy with what you got, It's all that counts. It's all that counts. Okay, and the rest it doesn't matter. I might not be happy with some radios that some are happy with, and well, you're happy. Cool. The only thing that counts is you're happy. It doesn't matter for the rest, honestly. Be happy with the radio you have, anyways, because it's what you got to listen, and whatever equipment you've got. Some people like more expensive tabletop radios. Some people like it's all a question of preference, and there's performance, but there's performance and preferences, and there is preferences that you got to take into account. Some people like certain aspects better, or certain things better than others, and for the most part, today's receivers are very close in performance to each other. So for the most part, a lot of the radios they just work well, anyways, for most people, and it's pretty crazy. What else do we have? David, closed loop antennas, such as not only loops themselves, but also other types, such as folded dipoles or cubical quads, are considered to not pick up as much noise as open-ended types. Music 76 makes me mad when I try to listen to BBC on 6005 and get overpowered by Cuba. Yeah, that's why I used USB. I go on 6005 because it is a problem here. On 6005, that's what I will do. I will use USB mode to move away from Cuba. That is often very, very strong here too. Canadian Radio TV guy says doesn't like as much activity on the amateur bands compared to the June. Yeah, the weather probably does help quite a lot in making sure that there's less people around, especially when it's minus 20. Man. Artist Ali Croucher's Kitchen. As I have mostly older radios, they each have a story behind them. That's what makes me happy. That's cool, And a lot of the old radios are amazing. When somebody asked me the other day, I've got a Sony 2010 or something like that, and said, I'm thinking of purchasing something newer because maybe it's getting old. My short answer was, if you want to buy a new radio thinking you're going to get more, don't waste your money, because that Sony 2010 gets everything that I'm going to get on my modern radios. If you think that buying a new radio is going to give you more signals, then no, you're not going to get more signals. If buying a new radio because you just want to have something more modern and for the fun of it, then go ahead. I would almost say that of, like a Texan PL 880 or 990. If you have a Texan PL 600, 660, you're happy and you're having fun with it. What's important to know is that it's much more of a, I want to have a Texan PL 990X. Go for it. It's because you want one. That's all. You're getting another great radio. But don't go for it thinking you're going to, get more signals. It ain't going to happen. And if that is the reason, then save your money for other things, or buy yourself a loop, an MLE 30 or something. Spend it in something else that could improve your hobby rather than a new radio. Canadian Radio TV guy, 20 meters out here, an hour away from VE6 JY site, is pretty busy right now at the moment. Cool. Yep, there are hams that love the AM side of the 80 meter band. Uh, 41 says, in my country, only one medium wave station. Yeah, that is sad. Michael Thompson, hello there. Keegan says, sometimes listen to BBC via Radio New Zealand International on 13840 here, and hear interference from WWCR 13845. Yep, that could have happened also. Absolutely. Eventually, for audio quality, can be the old HF225 or a old Yaesu FRG 7700 FRG7. You know, the older radios had bigger speakers because the older radios were bigger. So they had space for that bigger speaker, which also gave richer audio. You know, that is one of the things that, if I had to say a negative side to the modern portables, is the modern portables have become small. Small means they also had to reduce the size of the speaker in it and often reduce the quality of the audio also at the same time. You know, the good old big radios at the time, they had real big speakers, rich in audio and bass, and in, you know, it actually added to the enjoyment of the receiver itself, honestly. So what else do we have? There's always hams on 3885 AM here. Yep. You know, when there was a guy that asked me a question about the AMers on 80 meters, and listening to some hams if you didn't have a single sideband receiver. And actually every amateur band has a AM frequency, dedicated frequency. So like on 80 meters, anywhere from 3875, 3885, there's AM night there. 40 meters around 7290, 7295. For 20 meters around 14290, 14295. There are definitely some AMers in there. So it's kind of cool. I wanted to answer one question because a lot of people have been asking me about this. This little thing and 2 batteries that come with it. So more and more receivers actually use the BL5C lithium-ion battery. Actually, the PL368 that I purchased, the new PL368 also uses a BL5C lithium-ion battery. So most of you said it's unavailable anymore, but somebody has posted the link. But here in Canada, they were still available. So this is a little charger, and it comes with 2 batteries. They are weird branded batteries. I never heard of that brand before. AOZ. Now I purchased this on Amazon for around 26 Canadian dollars. And so there's 2 lithium-ion batteries and an external charger that comes with it, so that you can actually charge externally these batteries. Now, because I'm starting to have more radios with these, I thought it was a great idea to get one, because I do have the Texan PL330. I have the RadioWow. Both use this BL5C battery. I'll add to that the Texan PL368 when I get it. I'll have now 3 radios that have that. So it's a good idea to have extra batteries to have along. So these are rated at, and you know, I'm not taking this as cash because I don't think I tried searching more information on the BL5C and didn't find a lot, but I don't think these are rated right. So the rating on these on Amazon are 1600 milliamp hour. I personally don't believe they are, because I think that BL5C batteries are limited to 1200. But anyways, I still purchased them, and I've used one on my Texan PL330, led the PL330 with the light on all day, and I mean, it was still full scale battery at night. So they look like really, really nice batteries. And I like the fact that I have an external charger, so you know, I don't have to, I can just pop in another battery in the Texan receiver and charge it externally instead. So it doesn't, you know, I don't have to plug the radio all the time. Really find it really interesting. So you guys could look on Amazon. You know, I don't want to send any, because every time I buy something, people are like, "Oh, the link. I'm going to buy the same that you did." I don't want to push any special branded one, but I just want to mention that it exists out there, that you could buy a charger, external charger, and the lithium-ion batteries. If you want to have extra batteries, I think it's a good idea for the BL5C. Sorry. What else do we have? What else do we have? Radioactive question. What is your opinion on station grounding? Ground or not to ground? Well, it depends on how you're set up. Station grounding, if you use standard antennas, is a vertical or a wire or whatever, or anything. It's important to ground everything, absolutely, because part of the reason is going to remove noise. But grounding is a complex thing. It's not just putting a wire to earth, but grounding in general, it can help. Now, one of the big mistakes that a lot of people tend to think is, I'm going to ground my station in case of lightning strikes. I just want to say, lightning strikes, if it hits direct on your antenna, nothing you do will change anything as to what's going to happen. Everything's going to just blow up. And that's very important to understand. But grounding in some cases can actually lower the noise that you have, because you can put in some types of antennas, you can put the insulated ground and have only the central connector, so it's going to kind of shield more. And grounding radios sometimes has an effect also. Most of the big gun receivers have grounding capability, and it is often they will say it's better to ground with a good ground, but most of the time they will say it is mostly to lower noise more than anything else. But having a good ground is a complex thing, especially if you're far from the ground. And a lot of people that are grounded are not necessarily really grounded more than anything else. But do not take that as I'm going to protect my equipment with from lightning strikes by grounding. Ain't gonna happen. It's not made for protection to that. Sean McKee is hooking is PL660 to a Bluetooth speaker. Cool. And like Matt said, if you have a transmitter, it is better if you transmit, because at all. But in receiving, it depends. It depends on your setup and what antenna you're using. And of course, you don't ground. I get the question all the time. Do you? It's funny because you get all the people asking me, how do you ground your MLA30? You don't ground it. It's a complete system on its own. There's no grounding of an MLA30 at all. You don't have to worry about that. And most magnetic loops, anyways. Canadian Radio TV guy says, that's funny. Joe started talking about the BL5C battery right after it plugged the PL330 in. But also, like Matt says, if you do transmit, a good ground is required. But in receiving, it might lower in some cases, and I do stress out here, in some cases it can lower noise. It depends on the way that you're set up. Mike WDX50, nice to have you on board from Northwest Arkansas. Yeah, if it's done correctly. It can decrease noise. But the problem, and this is the big problem with grounds, it's got to be as short as possible. And that's where it gets, it might be a problem. If it's too long, your ground loses its capabilities, and it might actually increase noise rather than lower it. But grounding needs to be done in a very specific way and has be as short as possible. The grounding needs to be really as short as possible. Um, Absolutely. It is weird to think that you can hear a signal from the other side of the world, an invisible signal. Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely. If you have a phone, like Ari says, if you have an old Nokia phone, don't throw it away. You can charge your BL5Cs with that. Absolutely, absolutely. Radioactive says, yeah, direct lightning strike will definitely let the magic smoke out of your radios, and pretty much everything else in your home. Can you unplug the equipment when it's lightning? It is recommended that you unplug antennas, and it's even recommended that most of us don't do it in our modern world, but exactly it's that for radio, if you have external antennas, when there's thunderstorms or lightning around, it is recommended you unplug the antennas from your radios to make sure, because remember that lightning is not just a direct hit that can burn up your radio. A close lightning strike can induce magnetic fields strong enough that it will induce voltages in the input of your radio and blow out the transistors, the amplifying, the RF stage of the radio. So you don't have to have a direct hit to burn out a radio. A lightning strike that's real close to you can be enough to blow out your radio. And you won't even see smoke or anything, but it ain't going to work anymore. So remember that. So technically you should, the rules is thunderstorms are coming, unplug the outdoors antennas. Thunderstorms are coming, so make sure. There's even a rule that says, I remember when I was studying in electronics and stuff, they were mentioning even in your home we should actually unplug our technologies, TV and all of that, from the wall socket when there's thunderstorms, because they can be blown out by a nearby lightning strike. And the other thing is, if you are going to go away, say you're not going to listen for a month and a half, unplug all the antennas. Don't leave the antennas plugged in on a radio if you're multiple weeks without doing anything. One, to avoid the chance of maybe there's going to be a thunderstorm while you're not at home, but also there's other things that can happen. If you have really big antennas, if you have really long wire, and you're not grounded well, because this is one reason a ground could help. If you're not grounded well, is that winds, the air flowing on your antenna can induce some static electricity buildup on the antenna, and that can actually come to a strong enough voltage to also cause damage of the input. So these are things to think about. And thank you, Matt, for the funding for the Robert Page Master in Moore, Oklahoma, watching. Welcome aboard, my friend. Let me check here if anybody has sent anything on the email. So nothing has been sent on the email apart from that. Mike WDX50, unless the lightning strike comes through the window and hits your radio, unplugging everything should work. Yep, pretty much. Pretty much. Technically, the biggest protection is you unplug the antenna and unplug the radio from your home's electricity. Richard Bidner, nice to have you here from North Texas. I do a battery swap with my Radio R108 with the USB cable plugged in. I don't lose my stored memories or time. Cool. Vicky Pelletier, salut. Short explanation of the dBs, and you mean like on the radio signal for your signal to noise ratio? Is that what your reference is about? So, and the signal level and the signal to noise ratio is actually dB microvolts, which is every unit of signal in a radio has a certain level of microvolts in it. So a calibrated receiver in its signal strength indicator, every certain level has a certain amount of microvolts of electricity coming from that are created by the radio wave on the antenna. But I don't know. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you want to know or not. What else do we have? Check CP Davis. These shows are too much fun. Matt says people who really want to learn about grounding should get a ARL book on it. It's not too big, but the topic is a bit complicated. It's a very complex thing, and a good grounding system is a complex thing to achieve. And a lot of people are not grounding properly. Technically, Vince, your grounding should not be done on the electrical system of your home. It should be independent and to the ground. In most of what is radio equipment and amateur radio equipment, they'll tell you that using the electrical systems ground is not a good idea at all. Canadian Radio TV guy says, always enjoy listening to the East Coast guys on 7225 lower side band. Radioactive, to be clear, single point ground is what I am referring to. If you're daisy chain your equipment one to another, then go to ground, you will create ground loops. Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a very, very complex thing, the grounding system. And each equipment should technically be on its own ground. And as Norfolk says, there are no rules when lighting is concerned. Yep. VE3 VTG. Anything too long can be subject to common mode problems and re-radiation and might require ferret cores to eliminate those issues. Yep. Because the longer you have your feed to ground, it changes its properties as it gets longer. Dennis Whitehead, nice to have you on board. William Helms says they can see ball lightning, or should have gotten off of the phone one time. Yeah, you shouldn't even be in the shower when there's a thunderstorm. $41, if you're not going to use any device for months, just unplug it. Yeah, absolutely. Matt says lightning that strikes a power line can send that power right into all the nearby homes. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a ham here that was, remember, the he lived in a pretty remote area of the South Shore, and he was mentioning how one day a lightning strike hit the electricity where he lives, and everything blew up. He was mentioning that even the light bulbs that were off, even the light bulbs that the switch was off, blew up because there was so much electricity that the little gap in the switch was not enough to prevent an arcing of the electricity in the contacts. And he said he was so amazed to see that even everything that was off with the switch was burnt. And he says the only thing that actually, what did he say? So everything in his house blew up. And he said that the only thing that survived was his fridge. And he was surprised. He said, wow, I don't know what they do with the refrigerators, but he said the refrigerator didn't suffer any damage. But it's crazy. Even the light bulbs that were off, crazy. David, I personally don't have my transmitter receive station grounded, partially because it's on the third floor and I don't have any short path ground spike. The long wire needed could interact negatively or RF wise. Yeah, if you're very far from the ground, grounding becomes a very, very complex thing to do. Vince, okay, but if you just make it totally independent ground pole, not with electrical box, maybe you will have less noise from all the other things. Technically, yes, because the grounding of everything in the electrical system is certainly having some noise effects. And remember, your own electric system, the wires on the wall everywhere. Remember that everything that generates noise, these wires are antennas that generate noise also. So these are all things that you need to know. So sometimes it's hard to, think, why is it that I have the same noise level everywhere? It could be one device plugged into a wall socket that's very noisy, and all the wires in your electrical system are all, they're a giant antenna system sending out noise. Snow Puppy 77 got my Texan PL330 in the mail today. Firmware is 3305. Sound quality from the speaker is significantly better than the CC Skywave SSB. It's much better than my Grenic G5. Loving G6. Loving it so far. Cool. Happy to see that you're happy with that. It definitely has better sound than the CC Skywave SSB. That is one of the first things you noticed. Not so, Richard Bittner. A high-quality surge protector will protect you from spikes that could happen, but anything that is a hit on the electrical system by a lightning strike, a surge protector is useless. There's an overestimated, I called it, they're overestimating the protection capabilities of the surge protectors. They are not as good as they sound. They protect a certain amount in a certain level, yes. If you live, for example, a good quality surge protector, I would recommend if you live in a rural area where you often see little spikes and little changes in the voltage. Sometimes you see that the lights dim or the lights go up a little bit and then back normal. There are areas of the grid where it's not as stable as other parts. And remember that electricity works in a very, like everything, when you turn on a device. So look at your, say that you have, 5 devices on the same wall socket, okay? So they're all on the same circuit, which means they all deal with each other, sharing the electricity that's in there. When you turn on a device, it draws power. And electricity tends to want to always stay the same. So the drawing of power will create a down spike. It will lower for a brief moment the voltage. But of course, the system wants to keep itself in a certain level, so it will actually come back up. Same thing will appear if you shut down a device. It will create another spike. So turning on or turning off devices creates either a spike that makes the voltage go down and back to normal, or back up back to normal. So that means you can have spikes that mean when you actually use devices and turn it on or off, if you're on a 120 volt circuit, it's not surprising that you could have a very brief spike that goes up to 140, 150 volts. It's part of the way that electricity tends to try to always keep itself at a certain level. It wants to compensate for the loss or for a change. A surge protector is good. A good one is good for that because it can help smooth out the spikes that constantly happen because you turn on or off devices. And that, in the long run, can actually save some of your equipment. Some of the power supplies that give out sometimes, they sometimes give out because over the years, these little spikes that happened all the time damaged the transformer or damaged the power transformer in a way that eventually it just gave out. So surge protectors, and when I say that, it's not a $9.99 surge protector bar at the dollar store. Okay, those are worthless. It's the really good quality ones that have multiple ways of protecting you. Remember that a surge protector does not work if your electrical system, and there's a lot of it happening here in my apartment. It's like that. The ground does not exist on that wall socket. Houses and apartments that were built a long time ago did not have grounded outlets. There's only a few outlets that are grounded, and they are for specific items. Like here, the grounded outlets are for the washer and dryer, the refrigerator, and the stove. But the rest of the house is not grounded. And so remember that surge protectors do not work if you have no ground on your wall socket. Okay? That's another thing to really understand. If you live in a house that's old and the sockets are not grounded, your surge protector is useless. That's also something to understand. But surge protectors will not protect you at all in, very close, or if the lightning strikes hit the electricity pole outside, because that will overwhelm any surge protector. We're in the mailbag portion of the show. Canadian Radio TV guy. I like that, the mailbag portion of the show. It's very important to understand that. Cree Brian, what do you think of the Malachite DSP SDRs? Are you ever going to review one? It depends on how things go. I'll be checking that out for sure. They look interesting. They do look very, very interesting. For sure. Artisanal Crafter's Kitchen radios with field effect transistors are very sensitive to static electricity. Yep, you got to be careful. And portable radios, be very careful, especially like right now here in my home, it's 22% humidity in this room. I'm wearing a wool jacket, a wool shirt. If I rub against stuff, I get real big static discharges. I pet Paul the cat. That means you got to be careful, because if you touch the telescopic of a portable, you can blow out the transistors at the RF amp. Ricardo, nice to have you on board. 41, this is SDR Sharp software, and it's running SDR Sharp software, and it's running the it's running the Airspy HF Plus Discovery. Retro Man, my cat is sleeping in the bedroom. Decided that you wanted to have some time off from me. Mike, WDX50, I have teachers who have had issues with a power cable running over 3.5 millimeter audio cable. I always tell them to keep cables carrying data away from cables carrying electricity. Yeah, because, there's the magnetic fields around these cables can induce. I would guess that that would be good enough at 1080 WG for wire gauge. 41 is longer better for a wire antenna. That's the general rule. If it's quiet where you are and it's a wire you put outside, just put as long as you can. But for a lot of radios, we often see that. There's not much advantage when you go over 30 or 40 feet in many cases. It depends on the radio you use, and it depends really on the noise you have around you. But you could use that the longer the better rule in general, I guess, on shortwave. Yeah, it's very important because they sell us these surge protectors with, they seem to be indestructible when they actually sell them. And honestly, we got to be careful because they do give some amount of protection, but they aren't gonna protect you from a lightning strike. 73, Chuck CP Davis. Mike WDX50 killed a CD DVD duplicator at work with static electricity. Touched the power switch, saw the spark, and it was dead. Yep, it's easy to. It's really easy. Absolutely. Joseph, if you have high value equipment and questionable grounding, I would go with an AC/DC AC inverter or a computer battery backup. Those are interesting. The backup with the battery backup devices will often be will protect you more because of the layers of the way that they work, the layers of protection and conversion. Yeah, the first versions of the 2010 had static problems. Absolutely. I remember when they came out and that problem started appearing everywhere, people complaining that the radio was deaf. They corrected it later, but I do remember reading about it a lot at the time. It was pretty crazy. How do you get the best signal on portable radios, and how do you avoid static electricity discharges on them? So, touch anything that's metal before touching your radio. First of all, if you have static discharge on yourself, try to touch anything. If it's grounded, it's even better. And touching an electrical appliance, the metal electrical appliance will help out. But in general, just touching anything metal will, and you see the spark fly from your finger, you're okay. Then after that, you'll be able to touch your radio for sure. As for the best signal on a portable, it's really getting the right antenna positioned right and the lowest noise. Sometimes, unfortunately, it might mean going out from the house for sure. But it's very, very important to touch. I have a habit of, for example, for a long time, because the way that it's built, the ICOM ICRD500 is metal. It's metal casing. I would touch the ICOM metal casing and discharge like that for my static electricity before touching other radios sometimes. But always, anything metal will help. Anything metal, the worst I have here is when I go in my bedroom and Paul the cat wants to play, and I play with him in the bedroom, and I'm on top of the bed with the sheets and my sweater, like, and playing with Paul. Oh man, I have the worst static discharges ever. There was one the other day that I touched the little screw of the light switch, and the spark was real huge, and it was like it hurt. It was so huge, I felt my hair rise a little bit from the static everywhere. I was like, wow, that is one hell of a static discharge. So touch anything metal to help remove the charge that you might have, for sure. There is to give you an idea of how static is crazy. There was a place where I used to work, because there was always two. There were, the way that the machine worked, there were kind of two big brushes that were constantly touching each other. Every time you worked on that machine, you had to hook a wire, a little wire, to a part of your body in order to work and not be zapped all the time. And the fun part that we had was every time there was a newbie that started the job the first day, we always joked and never we would not tell him for the first hour that you have to we weren't very nice, but for the first hour it was like we would not tell him that he has to put the little wire to one part of his body, and you would see the newcomer start his work day, and we were showing things up, and we would see him jump around every time he would get a static discharge. And then after an hour, we would say, okay, guy, we're laughing because we have to tell you have to put that little wire and attach it to a finger, or attach it to a part of your ankle, on the skin directly, so that you don't have any of that. But it was like we would laugh our head off every time, because for the first hour we would see the guy like jump all the time. I was like, oh, look at that, he just got another static discharge. That was not nice, I know. But when you're 19 years old, you go to work and it's a boring job. What do? You do things like that just because it makes you laugh. God. Rich metal oxide varistors are devices inside surge protectors, and they are designed to pop like a fuse. A lightning strike can and often will arc across. Yeah, that's the thing. It's because it arcs. That gap is not enough to protect. Joe Tyson, I have a relay connected to the IC 7200 antenna input that disconnects the antenna when I turn off the 12-volt power supply. But remember that a relay, depending on the size of that relay with a lightning strike is not going to be enough. Relays have contacts that are relatively close to each other, so it can arc in between the relay contacts. John Doe, last night Alan Wiener, 500 kilowatt transmitter went offline. They are having problems with the cooling system, and keeps on the beast keeps clogging and leaking. Actually, there was if you guys want a job, Alan Wiener posted a job opening. They are looking for a engineer to take care of the 500 kilowatt transmitter. It doesn't say how much they're going to pay. It just says that that person will be well paid. So anybody interested in working as an engineer for WBCQ on that 500 kilowatt transmitter? Mark Brando, anyone using the RSPDX with the MLA30 Plus on Part B with the RSP bias T? Does the MLA30 antenna power indicator turn on with the RSP bias T? You don't use the power box with the MLA30, Mark. Okay, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the little box with the little light on it. That box is not in there if you use the bias T of the RSPDX. You plug the antenna directly into that connector. that wire that comes from the MLA30 that usually goes into the bias T box, that is plugged directly into the RSPDX. The box itself is unused. You don't need the box at all. If you put it there, it doesn't work. Remember that. A lot of people have put it wrong. I've seen quite a few people complaining. It's like, it doesn't seem to work. You're not setting it up right. The bias T, remember, okay? The RSP has a bias T. The MLA30, the little box, is a bias T. You don't plug a bias T on a bias T. You remove one of the bias T. So if you plug it on the RSPDX, you will remove the bias T box that came with the MLA30. You don't need it anymore. But if you if that's the way it works. You just plug the MLA30 itself, has the wire coming inside. You plug that directly to the RSPDX on that port. It powers it. That's all. I mean, come on. We were having fun. It was seeing the guy jump every like 2 minutes because it was getting a static discharge. Oh, yeah. Some of them are painful, like crazy, too. Absolutely. Man. Okay, for the static discharge, Joe Tyson relays mainly for static charge buildup on my long wire. Unplug the antenna when the storm comes. Cool. Cool. Others Outcrafter's Kitchen. Knowing Alan Wiener, well paid means minimum wage. Yeah, that's possible. I mean, I remember when I looked at it, it was like, yeah, what does that minimum wage mean exactly? He doesn't know how to operate that transmitter at all, and he's like going crazy. I am worried about the battery life on a portable radio. If it runs out quickly, then it's not so enjoyable, but with an analog, it'll probably last longer. Most portable radios today have very long battery lives, honestly. So a lot of them. You mean 882 kilohertz, Retro Man? I see a spike on 882 kilohertz next to, because here in Montreal, it's 882 or 882 kilohertz. I see, because here we have 880, which is WCBS New York coming in real well. But at night, when especially on the SDR, when I listen to WBCS 880, I could see at 882 there's a little spike. It does make it here, but not enough to actually be received. I can't listen to an audio, but I definitely see the little line, the little spike. And the first time I noticed it is when WCBS a few months ago did some antenna maintenance, and they shut down the transmitter at midnight. So I listened because I wanted to see what else I could actually hear on 880 without WCBS being there. And I immediately noticed there was something on 882. And that's the first time I had noticed that 882 was actually making it all the way here. So, Ricardo S. remember zapping my colleagues at school with a piezoelectric starter. Oh, man. I remember one of the little things that I would do that were surprising everybody. I had a small, a little transformer that was something like, it was a transformer for electronic kit, and it what it did was, it would amplify just enough So, you know, a transformer, a regular magnetic transformer. What happens is, of course, one side has more coils, more turns of wire than the other. And technically, on a real big magnetic transformer that should give us 12 volts from the 120 volt socket, well, technically you have 10 times more wiring on one side than the other. And when you plug that in, what happens is, or 10 times, well, anyways, when you plug it in, your 120 volts is divided into 12 volts, depending on the amount of wiring that you actually have. So if you have, you know, 1,000 turns on one and you have 100 turns on the second, well, 120 volts will be lowered to 12 volts on the second because of the amount of wiring that is a lot less. So it takes less energy off of the magnetic field. But also, that works in reverse in some cases, not in the electrical socket. You should never plug a transformer in reverse and a 120 volt socket, because you're going to have a huge surprise. But with a low amount of electricity, you can actually have fun. And one of the things I would do is I would always say, I would tell my friends, I said, you know, I can zap you with a 9 volt battery. And they will all say, a 9 volt battery, you can't zap me. You can't, give me electric shock with a 9 volt battery. And I was like, of course I can. And they were all, show me. And I would take one of the transformers and I would put the 9 volt battery on the side where there's the least amount of turns. And of course, you just, like tap, because the current needs to kind of switch. So, when a transformer works, because the current changes side every 60 times a minute, seconds. Sorry. What happens is, of course, you have to create little spikes. So I would just touch the 9 volt battery quickly like this with the wires, and I would say, "Hold the other end," and they were all like, "Oh." It's like, oh, I shocked you with a 9 volt battery. And they were all surprised. I was like, what? Yep. I just plug it backwards. It increased the current, the electricity, rather than lowering it. It was a fun thing. One of those fun things you do when you understand electricity a little bit more. It's kind of fun. Canadian Radio TV guy, one feature found at PL330 is by holding down the number 1 key. You with the radio off, you extend the bottom of the FM. Yep, there's that. One is, of course, the number 5 key. If you hold it, it turns on the backlight and keeps it on when you're using the radio. You can calibrate the frequency. If you tune WWV on 15 megahertz, for example, you tune until the upper lower sidebands sound the same. And then you press upper sideband and hold it until the display flashes twice. And you have just calibrated the receiver to be on frequency. There's the other key. I don't remember which key it is, but there's one that disconnects the internal ferrite when you are using an external antenna. Hey, we have someone for the Arctic Circle in Sweden. Nice to have you here, my friend. Doorbell transformer backwards. Absolutely. It was just like, it was just funny. Little things that you do sometimes. You are a very entertaining person. Thank you very much. I hope so. Because I don't want to, I don't want to bore anybody. Man. It's pretty crazy. Randy Kelmer says, remember, if you receive a sling load from an helicopter ground, the load first, the static charge will give a real kick. Man. Nah, I'm not interested in any Discord groups or anything, DJ. We got enough of here, and we got the Facebook group, and that's perfect. That's perfect. So, hey guys, been on for 3 hours and 40 minutes. Not bad of a show for today, Saturday. So, hey, I'm going to go and find something to eat. It's that time here, and I hope you enjoyed the show today. And we're going to be back next week. Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern and 0 hours Universal Time, and Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 20 hours Universal Time. And if you enjoy the videos and everything, it's always nice to be here. Kimberly wants to have a peek out the window. I don't know if you're going to see much, but let's try it. It's kind of dark and full of snow. Okay, let's see if it works. If I can reach it, first of all, because that's the other story. Okay, here we go. So this is what it looks like. Ouch. Outside. So there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed Kimberly. Yay. It's better when something's happening. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. Yep, pretty wet and pretty cold. Minus 13.3 Celsius right now. Going down to minus 20 tonight. So hope to everybody. Mark says, thanks for the MLA 30 bias T info. Makes sense. The RSP manual was not helpful. Yeah, it's a common, Mark, that's a common mistake I've seen a lot of people do. They try to figure out how to plug in the antenna and use the RSPDX bias T and don't understand it doesn't work. And after asking the questions and verifying, what I understand is every time that happens, most of the time, they're trying to plug the antenna to the bias T with the bias T. And they don't understand that, well, it's because it's a bias T. So the RSP's bias T is taking the place of that little box. You don't need it anymore. That's something that happens very often. You're not alone. So many people have asked me and saying, "Well, how come it doesn't work with the RSP's bias T?" And it's like, oh, because you're leaving the box in. You remove that box. You don't need it anymore. You just need to plug the antenna directly into the RSPDX connector and make sure that the bias T and SDR Uno is turned on to give the power. So take care, everybody. Stay safe, and see you next week. And hope that you enjoyed the show tonight. Bye-bye, my friends. Stay safe.